Hey, what's up? My side said there's one person in the room. I'm not there yet. I will be in 1 second. Um, Feel free to stick around for another 30 seconds so I can get in because this is live, and it's good to get this info now. I feel like instead of waiting um, until tomorrow, 12 hours from now, when most of it will be published, but won't it's not going to come with the ins and outs of maybe what you should or should not be taking a look at based on what is released. Let's see here. Crap. Sorry. Um, okay, nothing there. Just wanted to double check one last thing here before I jumped into the room that I thought I had before starting this, and I didn't for whatever reason. All right, so I'm getting in the channel now. Here we go. See, the volume's already down, and nobody here. All right, cool. Glad I didn't know I was talking to myself. Take two. I mean, guys, start over. That's the thing that sucks about live. Um, anyway, tomorrow's event, if you want to call it that, I'll get into why I'm not convinced that it's going to actually be the event, but it's dynamic duos, and what was shown so far, so I'm not giving anything away here on this part of it. What was shown was specifically Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. I think it's kind of hard to argue that they are not, despite both of them getting two informs, two upgrades, both in October and November. Um, Generally, I think like most people would agree that the team hasn't been playing that well, and specifically those two players haven't really been playing that well. But based off of prior years being really great, but I'll just go with that. But point being, hard to argue that they're not at least a duo, if not maybe a dynamic in some respects duo. They certainly have been over the years, and there aren't a ton of pairs, whether D side or on the offensive third as forwards, or a mix between a defenseman and a forward. I guess somebody could get paired with a goalie. I can't think off the top of my head who would be a good mix there to do on any of the 31 teams. I hadn't thought about that before doing this, which was kind of stupid on my part, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty clear that they are a duo, and out of those, as I said, there's very few that have managed to pick up at least one inform in really the 2 months that this has been here. There was a couple of people that were managed to get some informs in September. Um, they're based off of in real life NHL games. There's obviously not as many games that got played during that month, and even anything that was played on the last day of the month. I believe, if I recall correctly, if there were any games, this is really really specific, but if there were games that were played on the last day of September this year, and there was performances there that either required these kind of flashy star things here that look like primetime. Um, look like primetime. I think they look like stars or primetime. The other ones are team of the week. Those are the only two types of inform this year, and that makes it sound like there were tons of different informs previously. Last year, the only other one that's not here this year was milestones, and some of the players that you see here on this screen had milestones last year and had chances at milestones again this year. So um, they just don't have them. Jesus. In the game this year. So whatever. So these are the two ways in which you get these informs, and you're able to see through sort of a natural progression if you're a current player, not just in the NHL but in the other leagues, the other professional leagues as well. As long as you're still playing the game, you have a shot at the informs. It seems like um, I don't know. I was gonna make a kind of a broad statement that it might be just easier to get the inform if you are still in the NHL as opposed to in a different league. But that's I don't have data to actually back that up. That's just kind of a general sense that I have that certainly if you're on kind of the lower end or a more in terms of a prospect, a young player that doesn't have a high rating in the game, and is particularly playing in like in a junior type of league or something like that, or still maybe playing over in Europe and hasn't ported over yet to the NHL. Um, but again, likely still has a pretty low rating to start with. It seems like it might be a little bit easier for them to, particularly for the team of the week cards, for them to kind of get that through, versus these guys specifically Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson were the two that started. I'll show you here. I got two. I get an untradeable of each one of them. These were the two base cards that started the year. Apparently, I got this one in October. Okay, well, this one was the end of September, and maybe I had a second one of one of these and decided to re-roll it or something. I don't remember doing that though. I'm sure I will have to soon since we've already moved up at least 83s or 84s on trade-ins and re-rolls. It seems like so 85s is kind of next one to go with. But those two cards right there specifically were the highest rated base defenders in the game to start with, and it definitely seemed like to plenty of folks as if it was going to be a bit of a bust for the two of them this year in trying to kind of meet and exceed those expectations of being the highest rated defenders in the game. Just one little aside for me is that it is kind of interesting that they both play on the right side and are both right-handed, because that can have an impact both in terms of how they're able to play in real life, of whether or not they're going to get different lines mixed up by their coaches there in San Jose, to put them both out there at the same time, and whether or not anybody who's playing the game would look to have those two out there at the same time, putting however you normally choose to play with. If you've got your righties on the left or righties on the right, if you're going to play with both of these cards on the same line, you're going to have one kind of being out of a natural selection for you, regardless of which way it is, whether it's where it's out of position. For me, it'd be out of position to have them on the right side. For lots of other players who play standard as opposed to inverted like myself, it would be a bit out of sorts for them potentially to have either one of these over on the left side on that same line with them. And I think a lot of times when people think of duos or pairs, they think of it in terms of people who are line mates who are out there on the ice at the same time. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there, that I don't disagree with the notion of putting these two together as a duo, particularly in how EA, and specifically EA Sports, has handled the dynamic duos events / cards, whatever you want to call them, in other games. They didn't do it last year in 19, and I don't want to talk too much about the NHL series prior to last year. So the fact that they may not be seeing a ton of ice time previous years or this year on the same D pairings on the same lines doesn't necessarily mean that that they're not a duo the same way that you would think of other people who you might expect to be a part of this event, if it is in fact the event for tomorrow, who are more forwards who play in the same line, and who are just kind of both this year and in previous years just racking up tons of points because they're both sides are able to either assist to the other or to put it home with the goal. And so sort of it's pretty easy to see in those sort of circumstances that almost every play that those lines get involved in, that one or the other is getting the assist, and then the other one's getting the goal. And it can be a little bit easier, I think, to think of duos in that sense. And that threw some people off when they announced this earlier today on Twitter. Well, today for me. So in the last 24 hours before this event launches, technically today at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And I do like the fact that they did it. And it is the first time this year that they've previewed something prior to it coming out, and with the specifics. The specifics are that it's these two players, and that they are paired together, and that they have 92 overalls. So that's really the only info that you have to go off of so far. Since nobody's in the room, screw it. For those of you watching on the, otherwise I'll be talking to myself. For those of you watching on the replay, pardon me, whenever it is you choose to do that, God, I wish this was so much easier. Just kind of double checking here one real quick to see if they, yeah, I mean, so it definitely does suggest that these two specifically are going to be the MSPs. The last few events have had 5 MSPs. So I guess it could end up being just these two. I mean, it's screwed. It could be anything. It could be just those two. It could be 2 others, and so there could be 4, or they could go back to 6, which is what they had in the very first event, the classic NHL event. I'm not so sure about how good of a look it would be presently to drop 6 92 MSPs. However, I guess I hadn't really thought about that before going into this. I tried to think about as much as I could before coming in to do this live, because I rarely ever do that, and it makes me and mostly completely pointless. But thinking about that a little bit, this would be starting tomorrow, and then it would, presumably go for 2 weeks like all the other ones, assuming that this is in fact an event as opposed to just like a 2-card drop or whatever. And so, okay, now somebody is in the room, so I'm going to jump back into the room myself to see what that comment was. Oh, what's up, Ryan? How you doing, man? So you didn't miss much. I don't need to recap too much. I don't know if you saw the announcement from from the team in Vancouver, technically yesterday, within the last 24 hours, with these dynamic duo 92 overalls for Brent Burns and Carlson. But that was all that was announced. I just went to double check that right now, just to see if there's anything else listed on the cards, as far as, everything that you see here. All of these cards, they have quote unquote face stats. So the 5 overall stats that you can see by just looking at the card without even having to click on it to kind of zoom in. You can see a little bit bigger here that for Burns on his 89, his face skate stat is 90. Shooting or shot, however you want to say it, is 87. Hand deftness is 88. Checking is 90, and defense is 89. If that's all you know, that's helpful, and in my opinion, more helpful than basically all of the MSPs and other specials that come out that don't give face stats at all. In every case, though, I still feel like you have to kind of come down into the nitty gritty and see the underlying stats. Because there'll be a couple of these that I'll point out here in which the face stat is either, seemingly like quite a bit off, or it's just off just enough for it to be worth, digging into the actual underlying stats. What's going on here? Was there another? Oh, yes. What do you think the other cards will be? I don't know why stupid thing doesn't update as quick as it should. Man, I don't know, but stick around for the next like 5 minutes. Let me just get through thoughts on these 2 cards, But what I was saying, I think right before you came in, is that I don't know, number one, if it's even going to be an actual event, the way that every other event has been so far, or if it's just going to be kind of a two-card drop. Now, dynamic duos in other EA Sports titles, they almost never do just two cards, but it's a little bit different, in something like Madden, where almost every single event that comes every week for 52 weeks includes, a full uh, a full roster, not even starters alone, but like starters and subs, etc. Like a full team of 50 plus players, minimally, for like every single event. So it's a little bit different to try to compare it to that to over here, where you have a max of 20 player cards, and two of those are goaltenders, and most people don't think that goaltenders even matter. So it could just be just these two cards. Being that they're 92 overall, I don't know how you wouldn't consider them to be MSPs, because they'd be tied with the James Neal fantasy card as the highest overalls in the game when that happens. Um, and so it could just be those two. It could be two others for a total of four. And either one of those, if it's two or four, and it's an actual event and it lasts for 2 weeks and there's no other MSPs that come out, that would be the fewest MSPs released in any previous event. All the other ones have had five, and then the very first one, the Classic NHL event, had six. So there is part of me that, as I was talking through that right before you came in, what are you saying here? I hope there's more than two, because I saved 3 of my packs from Rivals. I have not even chosen um, my choice for Rivals. I'm in Div 8. I get stuck down in that hell for some reason. It's like impossible. I get. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent on this, but I got diamond in a day, effectively. I played maybe a couple games before the final sort of 12 hours before Rivals was ending. I think that was yesterday, the day before, whatever. It should have been Tuesday, um, or maybe Wednesday. I'm so tired. I haven't slept. I have no idea. I barely even know what day it is today. Um, but point is, like, I got diamond, and I may have lost a game. I don't know what kind of streak I went on, but the streak was crazy for me, because I think, Ryan, like, I don't play competitively, and I am terrible at the game. So for me to pull that through, and none of it was kind of the stuff that you'll see in comp seasons and stuff like that towards the end of a timer, where lots of people are just kind of quitting to get their minimums in. Um, Particularly if there's 15 minutes left in the event and you know that you're not going to be able to finish the game in 15 minutes. But if you quit, you get it to count towards your, the minimum 3 or whatever the hell you got to do to get your base pack, your premium pack, or whatever it is that you're going after. I don't know. It's a bit silly, but you can have that happen in comp seasons. There's no real, to me, there's no real point at all in doing that in Rivals. But you could still see a decent amount of rage quitting if it just seems like somebody's getting destroyed, and their time would be better spent in a different game where they've got a better chance at being able to win, even as it comes down to that final day. And I don't think I had really much of any of that. I might have had one, maybe two total out of at least 10 plus games that I played, in which the other person either quit or they lost their connection conveniently after I was, destroying them. Um, but I didn't have anybody who did sort of like the instant quit, or anybody that even quit in the first period. So almost all of those were actual wins. Some of them were comebacks and stuff like that. Sometimes I got a little lucky, to be honest. But in my opinion, for being as bad at the game as I am, I played really well, and yet every single game that I play, I get, I think it's, I don't even remember. I was gonna say +8. But I get like +8 points towards. I don't feel like going off of the shark screen, because I need to be here to talk about Burns and Carlson. Whatever they call it, it's not hut points. It's or maybe it is hut point. I don't know what the hell it's called, but whatever the points are that determine your division, I was only getting +8 every one of those wins. And like, let's say I won 10 of them, great, I got 80 points. I'm still nowhere near being able to qualify for Div 7. So after I had already achieved Diamond, I tried to play a couple more games, because I was going to really try to grind it out and get myself back into at least Div 7. I've been no higher than 6 and no lower than. I think I started off the very beginning in 9, so but I got out of that pretty quickly. Um, anyway, I was down. Or what are you saying here? I was down 5-0 in a game yesterday, and I came back in the third and won 7-5. Well, that would have been, I'm sure, really fun to hear the excellent analysis out of Sobalski of 7 in a row. Like they, talking about it as if it's like something that's never happened in the history of the sport. Um, they get super excited when somebody has put together 3 or even 4 uh, um, on how do they refer to it? 4 goals in a row without the other team scoring, but they've got a term for it, which is whatever. Anyways, um, but yeah, even if you might you add Div 8 against other terrible players, I might be able to get as many as 10 of those points, and I only need to get to like I think 1,300 total. Um, or 1350 maybe to get back up to Div 7, but it just seemed like insurmountable. Like it just seemed like I'd have to play like I don't even know. It felt like 100 games is what I would need to play just to get to Div 7. So the only reason why I brought all that up is that I played well. I got Diamond, but I only get 2 packs. 2 packs and 40 hut uh, champ points or whatever. Um, if I do the untradeable, obviously I get 2 of each as an untradeable, so for 4 total. But as of now, don't. I wasn't planning on doing that, and yet I'm an idiot. I sold my heavy hitter Doughty for just under 200. They take obviously their tax out, and then for content, I suppose I went with each of the packs that are out there right now. So 2 of the whatever the hell they're called, the NHL Premium Player Packs. 1 of the uh, Fruit Punch, 1 Premium and 1 Base. I got a Base Tavares, instantly put it back up on the market for 1,000 start price, no buy now, 12 hours, and I got 1 other card that I was able to put up on the market that was probably also purple. No, it wasn't purple. It was an 84. It wasn't Taylor Hall. So who the hell was it? it was Bergeron. So those are literally the only 2 cards out of all. Was that 2, 3, 4, so 5? At least 5 packs that I opened, and I was right at 200K when I bought those, and I haven't done anything else with coins up or down since then. So you see the difference that I've got there. 1,678 coins is what I have left after, admittedly more or less wasting on those 5 packs, and only 2 of those cards are not trade-ins, and very well might in 12 hours time might have people only paying 1,000 coins for both of them. So at least they can get 2,000 coins out of my 130,000 that I spent back on those. That sucks, man. I don't want to hear that. You can't be saying that on my channel. You know better than that. I pulled 3 purples out of 1 pack. Well, that could be fun, unless the 3 purples are base Barkov, base Gino, base Tavares. Anyways, let's get to the actual point here. I'm just gonna go off of an assumption that it would make more sense for them to do 6 because they're duos. I don't. It would be weird for it to be an odd number of any type. So 3 would be the weirdest, I think, but 5 would also be just as weird. Unless they did it the way that Madden and other games do, where they have an MSP of a player, and they have a duo, but like their duo is not an MSP. And I'll get into how the duos typically work in EA Sports titles because we haven't seen it in NHL the last 2 years at least. So that can be kind of important, and that could potentially happen. So there could be these 2, and they'll be linked together, and you have to get them both to activate the special duo synergy. And there could be 3 others who I would assume also be 92 overalls. However, all 3 of those could have their duo partners be included in the event, but not MSPs, and be less than 92s. And in order to activate the synergy for those 3 players individually, you'd have to get their lower rated partner and stupidly have them on your team so that it would activate the synergy. So just think of it in terms of a synergy that maybe doesn't exist at the moment, like fine shooting or sharpshooter or passing playmaker or something like that. I'm not saying it's going to be any of those, but those things don't exist right now. They did in 19. It would be strange if they didn't come back as player synergies in 20. So just assume that these guys get each card. So so say this Brent Burns is the 92 MSP tomorrow, which it will be. It will be tomorrow. That part we know, but it comes with synergies plural, and one of them is 2 points towards, just make it up, what doesn't matter, towards PP, which was passing playmaker, and so let's just assume it's something that impacts passing and maybe something else. Doesn't even really matter what it is. And then to get that player synergy activated, you have to have 4 points. And the only way to get that activated is to have the Carlson, who also has 2 points towards that synergy. So it's this weird sort of synergy that can only be activated when you have both of those players, active in your lineup at the exact same time. So unless, no matter how many they're going to release at least 2. That I would be extremely shocked if it's more than 6. They can definitely do lower rated players who aren't MSPs that and so therefore you'd be talking about potentially like 30 players over 2 weeks or whatever, and it could be the same synergy for all of those players, and that would make it less egregious in my mind, but it also wouldn't really be in keeping with how they've done dynamic duos in the past. So I know I said I wasn't going to mention that until a little bit later, and then I basically just explained it. So that's typically how that would work. And so if you were to look at probably Canucks, right? Well, let's go Lightning. I think this is a good example here. So, I mean, first off, you give Kucherov a 92, I think it does nothing. So it'd be pretty stupid, in my opinion, but people would still pay for it and maybe even turn in gold collectibles for it or whatever. But so you take Kucherov, and I don't even know who would you say would be the best example to have as his duo, like Stamkos? I don't know. And it wouldn't really work for like Hedman. But I was gonna say this is an example where you give Kucherov the 92, and then you give, if you give it to either one, like you can't even do Hedman because he's already an 88. And if you do Point or Stamkos or any of the rest of these guys, well, okay, so I guess it could be, if it was, Sergachev as a defender, Killorn, I guess, would make almost the most sense. He doesn't really pair with Tyler Johnson, but at least those guys are a little bit lower. And so point is, you give the 92 to Kucherov, and then you give probably an 86. And then you think about, Stamkos has already got 2 86s. Hedman's got 3 different types. Killorn even has one. Point has one. So, I guess this isn't really a great example, but the point is that you could do that type of deal where the Lightning duo have a specific synergy that gets activated only if you have those 2 players on your lineup at the same time, and it's a different synergy than anybody else that's in the event, and only one is an MSP and it's 92, and the other one's lower, whatever lower is, say it's like 86, whatever. Anyways, that's stuff I don't know about and I'm just completely making up, but that's just having played a bunch of EA games over the years. So let's go to the stuff that we do know, right? Here we go. So, new 88 icon, How guy, 85 Young Stars, Texier, and 88 Young Stars, Rasmus Sandin. Interesting. That's interesting. I thought you were saying, when I first read that, I thought you were saying Gordie Howe, who's clearly not an 88, he's a 90, but for me at least kind of feels like an 88. Are you in the room right now? That was 5 minutes ago that you said something, and it says there's only one person in here, and I'm in here. Sorry that I wasn't looking down at chat. That's my bad, dude. All right, so the things we do know is that Burns and Carlson are going to be included. They're going to have 92, what I'll call MSPs, even if it's not an event. Even if there is a completely separate event that's not dynamic duos that runs for 2 weeks and doesn't include these two guys. We know these two cards are going to come out tomorrow, which is now today, at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So why I felt like previewing this is just, we don't know anything else. We haven't seen any face stats or anything like that. They haven't given any indications towards synergies, which they never do anyways. And so going based off of how NHL 20 has worked so far this year, let's just talk about just these two cards and what to expect, right? So the Cliff Notes version of what I'm about to say, no matter how long it is that I take to say it, and says there's two people in the room now. So are you back, Ryan? Or did you just not go anywhere and now back to one? Okay. Well, my counter likes to get a little screwy at times, I guess. So the Cliff Notes version of what's going to probably take me a couple minutes here to explain is that I think that, as of tomorrow, and I don't know why it would change over the course of potentially the next 2 weeks, if that's how long these are available for and a full event, etc., the Carlson would be one to go after, and the Burns would absolutely not. And they could do some weird stuff that would actually change my mind and make it so that I would say it wouldn't be worth going after the Carlson. And, to the point of if you pack it in a tradable pack, absolutely sell it. Yeah, being that both of these two, no matter what, the minimum is that they're going to be tied again with the James Neal fantasy card as the highest overall cards in the game. It's only a +1 over the almost 10 now 91s that are in the game. So for me, that doesn't seem like that big of a gap difference. Plus, they're both right defensemen, and there are two 91 MSP right defensemen. They did, happen to get two guys that managed to get up to 89 already. So when you compare it to those cards that sort of already exist, there's a little bit less of a gap in terms of how much better they're going to be from their other cards than if you were to compare this to honestly than to the other two right defensemen who were part of the last week's event. That's still active right now with Charlie McAvoy and Moritz Apple Cider. All right, so I'm talking to myself. This is boring, dude, when I do this. Whatever. Anyway, so for you guys listening on the replay tomorrow, when the event is already live and you can already see this, I guess you're just finding out that I was correct on some of this stuff. So how this has worked so far in NHL 20 is that for sure, not necessarily every single underlying stat, but most of the stats are going to simply just get what's called a linear progression. So these are the 89s for Erik Karlsson. If you really need me to show you this, just look at the face stats, right? So 94 on skating and 87 on shot, compared to the 87, which was 92 on skating and 85 on shot. Just trust me that the underlying is exactly that as well. You take another 2 off of that to the 85 in the base card, 90 on skate, 83 on shot. And you can see here, to get to that 90 in skate, his base card was 92 for acceleration, agility, and speed. Endurance was a bit lacking at 90, and balance was weak at 85. On the shot, with the 83 overall, that's wrist and slap shot power at 84, wrist shot accuracy at 83, and slap shot accuracy is 81. You literally just go +4 on every single category, and you get here where you're looking at 96 for acceleration, agility, and speed. Again, a little bit down, -2 from that. On endurance at 94, and further down in balance at 89. The shots, again, slap shot and wrist shot power at 88, wrist shot accuracy at 87, and slap shot accuracy 85. I'm not saying that shot and speed are the only things that matter. I'm just using the first one alone so that I don't take 6 hours to explain this and then have YouTube take 6 hours to create this into a video, and at that point the event is already live, and then who cares? So we know for sure that at least some of the underlying stats, if not every single one of them, are going to have this linear progression where you take this 89, you convert it into a 92, it's a differential of 3. Every single one of the stats you see over on the right side, as well as technically the face stats that you see on the card, are all going to get plus 3, right? So start with the face stats for EK65 here. Skate, did I say skate stats or face stats? I have no idea, but I meant to say face stats, and I was going to immediately go into skate skate number. So skate is 94 on the 89, plus 3, 97. Shot goes from 87 to 90. Hand deafness goes from, if you want to call it handles, that's fine. It's just not what EA Vancouver calls it. So I get specific sometimes. So handles at 93 go to 96. Checking very low historically for him, and continues this year at 83, gets bumped to 86. And defense goes from 89, same as the overall, up to 92. Now, the underlying stats can get a little bit interesting here when you look at plus 3 for all of these. And I'm going to go down every single one that matter, since there's only really 2 or 3 that don't matter at all. Well, for him, because he's a defender, there's 4 that don't matter. But I'm going to go through every single one of those, and then I'll come back to the caveat about how you don't know if anything's going to get an additional boost beyond that plus 3. They have not released, that's not 100% true, but they've practically, 99.9% of the cards that have come out this year, they've practically not released any cards that have come with an increase in the rating that haven't at a minimum had this linear progression, and at times will come with a boost in at least one stat category as well. And I think that the only thing that I can think off the top of my head was that the who was it anyways? Crap. So it might have been the conversion. I'd have to go. I've got both of them. I literally have both of them in my collection too. So I want to go look. Oh, damn it. It's an alumni though, which is all the way over on the far right side. So stupid. Should be an easier way to get to that. Should at least be able to click, R1 or whatever to go on the far end of these things. All right. Well. Oh, that's right. So stupid. The icon is with the Red Wings. Luckily, they're close, I guess, right? I should have just done this from the search. A little bit easier this way, right? All right, so let me just double check on this. We're looking at a difference between an 87 and a 90. So first off, they didn't all get plus 3s. Just right off the top, the acceleration at 86 plus 3 would have been 89. It went to 90. Agility also got plus 4, as did balance, as did endurance and speed. So all of the skate stats all went plus 4 on what was effectively a plus 3 differential from the 87 Silver Master icon to the 90 MSP in the heavy hitter event. And I will get to the heavy hitter thing and the body checking getting a huge boost. But then also, if I remember, I wanted to use this as the example. I think that this was slightly off in the increase as well. So again, everything should get a plus 3. So for the shots, his are always weird. So slap shot accuracy at 86 and wrist shot power 85 are the ones that are closest in the middle. And both of those got a plus 4 also. It's not going in my favor. Well, slap shot power was a 90 and quote unquote only went to 93. So while the other ones all went plus 4, this one only went plus 3. Wrist shot accuracy also went plus 4 from 81 to 85. On handles, deking 87 to 91, hand eye from 86 to 90, passing stayed at 93. So finally proved my point that at least something didn't get the normal linear progression. I didn't expect it to be an example in which most things got a +4 instead, but here you go. Passing stayed the same at 93 for him. Let's see if anything else stayed down. Seems like everything else went up. So yeah, puck control went +4, and then the heavy hitter event, the whole point was body checking and strength, as well as in some cases stuff like fighting skill and discipline and aggression, stuff that doesn't matter. So yeah, he's an MSP, so he's going to get his body checking boosted to 99. Came with 93 strength, and in fact, that 93 strength was only a +2 from the 87 Silver Master Icon. So even though it was in an event that was the whole point was increasing strength and body checking, especially for a dude like him, despite his reputation, and we loved him here in Chicago. 6 foot 191. I was kind of going to make the same. He's like literally the exact same size as Carlson. I was going to make that point about Carlson that he's, he comes across as being lanky because he's kind of he's got long strides. He's got long legs. Carlson does. And he tends to play with a longer stick than most other people that at his size would do. So it gives the appearance that he's bigger, but he'd almost be lanky, and or even skinny if he had any more height to him, because he's only 190 pounds. But anyway, you see here, the point is with the Chelios, the strength that was supposed to get super boosted in the event went from 91 to 93. Aggression got a +4. Durability went all the way to 99, which is crazy, but awesome and helpful. Again, offensive awareness only got a +2, and defensive awareness stayed exactly the same. I knew that there were some things. I didn't think anything went down, and I guess nothing did so far. We'll see if anything did here. I would doubt it. Shot blocking went +4, but stick checking only went +3. Face-offs don't matter, but got a +4 anyways. Poise stayed the same at 93, which would have been super helpful to get a boost there also. Discipline, I don't care about, went +4, and fighting skill jumped to 99. So he didn't have anything at all that went up. That went down from where it was. But he had a fair amount of things, in my opinion, that stayed exactly where they were. It just so happened, I guess, in that very specific example, that despite an overall +3 that he experienced from his Silver Master Icon MSP, that all the ones that stayed exactly where they were 93 overall. That was poise, defensive awareness, and one of the handles. Was it exactly hand-eye? Probably. I don't remember. And then strength got a +2 from 91 to 93. So I could have sworn, I don't know who it would have been then. Probably not the Iserman either, but I thought there was one that they allowed you to do an upgrade, and there was at least one stat category that like might have come down a little bit, and it wasn't one of the ones that you would like look to see to come down, like aggression for a goalie, or kind of aggression, durability, fighting skill, or just want to click on the card so I can actually speak well. So aggression, discipline, fighting skill, and to a lesser extent durability, face-offs for anybody that's not a center, or at least particularly for those that are defenders, since we're starting to see some wingers that you could certainly put out there taking face-offs, and they're perfectly fine doing it. But I thought there was at least one person that came down in one stat category, and it honestly, it may have actually been Gretzky, because Gretzky had his 91 came on day one, as his 99 did last year, and then in the very first event he had a 90 MSP, which to me at the time definitely seemed pretty weird. I still think it's one of the worst choices that people could make back then, and still to this day, if you want to get that card. Although soon enough it'll go for like 30K, and at that point, why not if you don't have the 91? But the 91's way better. The 90 Gretzky specifically was 90 across the board. So certainly in those things that I don't think are helpful at all to get boosted as far as fighting skill, discipline, aggression, those things very likely could have been higher at 90 than his 91 would have been. But I'd wonder. I'd have to go and look, but I'd wonder if any of his other stats that actually do mean anything were in fact under 90 for their underlying stat. Maybe, and I think all of his shot stats were above 90. He's basically my best card and has been since day one. So I feel like I should know his stats a little bit better. But they just keep coming at us with this content and these cards. It's hard for me to keep track. Anyways, back to the actual point. I was just using that as an example where I think that kind of quote unquote banking on a linear progression of +3 across the board as a minimum is very reasonable and the way to go. And that was the whole thing that I was going to point out in doing this as to why I think Burns is a hard sell and Karlsson could be worth it if you kind of don't feel like waiting for his 91 in December as an inform, or a 92 in January. You can have tomorrow. You can have the 92. So let's start with Karlsson, not just because he's better, but also because looking at it from a +3 across the board makes this kind of an interesting card to play out tomorrow. So I already went over, I believe, all the face stat stuff that you'd be able to see, if you were just on a screen like this that didn't show the underlying stats. So again, skate goes from 94 to 97, shot from 87 to 90. I'm just going to call them handles from now on, I guess, in the rest of this video. 93 to 96, checking again super weak at 83 to 86, and defense, in my opinion, could be better, but in line with the overall at 89, jumping to 92. The underlying stats, all the skate stats, is kind of where you're going to see for him and literally anybody else that was a base card that was 80 plus. As they start to get into even this territory in the high 80s and low 90s, you're going to see them max out, in some cases, all the skate stats. For him specifically, acceleration, agility, and speed, all three of those with a +3 boost are going to go from 96 to a base 99. So, I mean, just think about that for a second. There really aren't any other cards that exist in the game, forwards or defenders, outside of probably actually the 91 inform for November. Connor McDavid would have 99s on these. I know his speed is maxed out for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure acceleration. The only one I'm not 100% on is agility. But I think that is the case for the McDavid as well. Kind of a costly card, as this 92 might be also. The only difference being that I don't think that McDavid was included in this week's Team of the Week, and I don't think that tomorrow he would have a reprise of his already released primetime. So, at least as far as tomorrow goes, and then through the weekend, you effectively cannot pack in any way, shape, or form that McDavid, whereas you technically could pack the Karlsson and/or ship X number of gold collectibles, which I will get to, in order to have that card. So it's going to be, again, a base for acceleration, agility, and speed of 99. Endurance is just slightly behind at 97. Very, very helpful. Practically maxed. Balance is starting to finally get back up there to something kind of key, particularly for anybody looking to focus on puck possession in however they do it. 89, like the overall, is going to bump up to 92. It's difficult to get any better as far as base stats on skating, and in my opinion, none of those should get an additional boost. You literally can't boost the first three, acceleration, agility, and speed, any further. 99 is the max. You could boost the endurance so that instead of a 97, it could weirdly become a 98, or it can get the full +2 on top of that to a 99. I wouldn't really have much of a problem with that. Um, but even if that stays at 97, if you move that balance kind of anywhere above 92, it becomes that much better of a card. And I could see that happening. I don't want to go off on too many tangents here on the things that possibly could be boosted, because we have no idea how they want to rock that with this dynamic duos, if at all. Um, so um, moving on to the shot stats, right? So overall 87 boosting to 90. He's another player that's not quite as kind of off kilter as that Chelios was that I was showing, but it is what it is. So nothing starts as high as 89, so everything's gonna be lower than his overall. The overall here being 89 when it boosts to 92. Again, if you only add +3 to every one of these, they're all going to be underneath that 92, but not by a long shot or anything like that. The slap shot and wrist shot power will go from 88 to 91, wrist shot accuracy just under that at 90, and slap shot accuracy at 88. If all you care about is skate and shot from anybody, particularly for defenders, um, you can't really go too wrong with that. If you already have both the McAvoy and the Cider, um, it's not just because they're 91 overall. They're also both extremely quick with pretty solid shots. You already saw I was pointing out the 90 MSP, also right defender Chelios card, who doesn't have exactly the same type of setup with just blazing speed and crazy good shot. Unfortunately for him, his severely lacking aspect on his 90 is endurance, and that can definitely wreak some havoc on your team on most of the games that you're going to play, which are going to be the longer games, right? So if all you care about is skate and shot, you kind of can't go wrong with how this Carlson is going to look, even if it does not get any boosts. And with that, I would say that obviously skate, as I said, is not lacking at all. Shot is slightly lacking, if we're being honest. I mean, this is going to go off another 2 weeks. You're going to be taking this into December. You're taking this past Black Friday. Not quite into the end of Christmas, but into the season when some it's gonna be at least one person. I'm gonna go with a non-zero number of people that are gonna get this game as a holiday type, or potentially, I don't know, for their birthday or whatever the hell. Even before December 25th, when this event should be over by then, but the cards will still remain. And so I wouldn't see much of a problem at all if these cards get boosts to their shot stats. It's actually exactly what I predicted for this event to be when I wrongly assumed it was going to be the one that came out 2 weeks ago, as opposed to what that was and what this apparently is going to be tomorrow. But again, I mean, the max here on the shot power for both slap shot and wrist shot are going to be 91. Even if those things kind of go from 91 to 95, that can make a significant difference, not just for him, but just comparing it to anybody else in terms of what their shots are capable of. Admittedly, for almost all defenders, generally you're going to be looking more for slap than wrist. He's kind of the anomaly on that, at least as far as his accuracy being better on the wrist than the slap is for him. Plus, we're going to get into his handles, and you see that those are crazy good also. And so he could definitely play a little bit differently for you than kind of standard defenders have done historically, how they did in 19 and got subbed out for forwards, and you can't do that this year in 20. But I would see, potentially if there was going to be a place to boost, I said it 2 weeks ago, I'll go with it again today. I think that the spot to likely boost, particularly if these are the two cards that we know you're going to be including, and who knows what else is going to be in the event. I think that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to see some even slight boosts to the shot stats for these cards. Probably should when you start to get up into these numbers. So the overall is 90, bumps it overall to 96, and that's essentially what this is for all four of the specifically, which will be 95. The rest of them will be 96 for deking, passing. Have a taller guy who, as I said, at 191 pounds, isn't huge really in terms of his height or his weight. 6 foot is kind of the cutoff. There's others that kind of, whether it's just for defenders or whatever, prefer to be looking at guys 6'3" and above, and then they would have weird cutoffs on what they prefer for the weight, whether it's at least 2 bills or closer to whatever 210, 215, maybe even 220, and the higher you go on either one of those, the lesser number of players available in those settings that are playing the game today. So if you're looking for somebody who's not not zagging in and out, as a like a 5'7", 5'8" dude or whatever, he's got the height, and he's not. I'll get to the strength and stuff like that. That's gonna have an impact. I already talked about balance. Gonna get up to at least 92. So he shouldn't be on balance alone. He shouldn't be super easy to take off the puck, despite not having a lot of body to him. But he's also not kind of that shifty guy that can almost go underneath people and underneath skates and underneath attempts on hitting them and stuff like that. But he does have the handles to be able to kind of make some of those moves. They're not maxed out, but they're pretty close, considering that we're not technically into December yet. We've actually got a full week left of November still, as well. But deking at 96 is, to me, is just kind of crazy. And hand-eye at 95 as well. If you're looking for those kind of things, just as far as being able to handle the puck and make some moves with it, the stats suggest that you'll be able to do that. For me, I'm not sure how many. I think this is kind of one of those weird spots where you'd almost prefer, particularly with the lower weight class here, you'd almost kind of prefer a smaller guy to be kind of going coast to coast, making all those moves and kind of deking in and out and still being able to handle the puck, as opposed to a taller guy. But because he does have that height, and he is capable of handling it, and his balance is still pretty decent, and his skate stats are maxed out, you definitely should be able to, despite him being a defender, you definitely should be able to take advantage of his possibly slightly higher height compared to some other even forwards and stuff like that, and his ability to kind of wade through those waters without too much of an issue, because his hand deafness stats across the board are not lacking by any means. They're almost all 96. Hand eye is 95. Puck control specifically can also impact that too. For me as a defender, particularly because I basically never deke, I don't really care all that much about that. And so for things beyond skate and shot and a couple others that we'll get to later, I'm just kind of going in order here. Passing specifically, and to a bit lesser extent, but it's great to have them paired together. Passing and puck control are extremely key for me out of a defender. And having them, knowing that this card is going to be a minimum of 96 on both of those two, is it's just great. It really is. I mean, it's very disappointing for me personally. I have at least, I have both of the 91s and the Chelios that you already saw the 90. So I've got at least three 90 or above right defensemen that are untradeable. So I didn't really want the very next week to have at least two 92 overall right-handed defensemen jump onto the market. But it is what it is, and these guys, Carlson specifically having these crazy good passing and puck control stats means, for me it's one of those things that I guess if I packed it in a tradable set, it would just come down to whether I value it, less than what somebody's willing to pay for it right now, knowing that everything comes down in value. And part of the reason why I only have 73,000 coins, even after they confiscated the million of my coins for no good reason that was never explained to me, I'd probably have much closer to, it's not like I play the market all the time, but even so, just with all of the packs that I've opened since day one, that luckily I've been able to curb, because I'm getting no returns on those anymore, which was to be expected, but the drop off was much more severe than I had anticipated, to be honest. Being as low as I am, even up to the 200K that I was at, a couple hours ago before buying those 5 packs, just to have that as for content or whatever. That I already said I got literally nothing out of. I got an 85 base Tavares and an 84 base Bergeron that I put both up for 1,000 starting price, no buy now for 12 hours, just to see if anybody feels like buying either one of those 2 cards. So I may get 2,000 coins back for those 5 packs that I spent, pretty close to 130,000 coins on. So the point for me, I guess, would be that all I was trying to say with that is that literally everything has diminishing marginal value. Even the fantasy cards that get upgrades, if they're not getting upgrades as quick, or if they just had higher prices and very high expectations earlier in the year. I've got a couple of examples like that, 2 of which I put out in the market that are going to sell tomorrow. They don't have a buy now, and I think they've already got the minimum bids on them from somebody else. So they will be out of my collection tomorrow, and I think that there's, I'm not trying to like reverse jinx it here, but I think there's, an extremely high percentage likelihood that they will sell for me considerably less than what I had even paid for them back when I did. So that's just kind of how it goes across the board, except for James Neal, basically. And that's a fantasy card that went from, I think he started at like 79 and now he's a 92. And they get maxed at 99 also, so they have an upper limit, and it is what it is. Point is, every other card in the game has diminishing marginal value, and even though there can be fluctuations and you can play the market, yada yada yada, generally speaking, over time, even before the game officially dies and moves on to the next year and no one is playing this anymore, even before that happens, they're going to come down at least a little bit in value. And so anything that I had spent coins on previously, or trying to remember if I bought that heavy hitters Dowdy or if I actually pulled it, because for some reason I think I actually pulled it in a pack, and I think it no, I was gonna say I thought I pulled the heavy hitters Ovechkin also, but I don't think that I did. But for some strange reason, I feel like I packed that Dowdy as opposed to buying it. But even so, when I packed it, I was banned from the auction house at the time for a week, and it was going for close to 300K. Sold it today for 199. So you ate to see it, boys. But nothing I can do about that, quite frankly. I might have been able to mitigate that would-be opportunity cost a little bit from when the market opened up for me and before today, but honestly, at that time, it was kind of the best card out there. so it didn't make as much sense for me to get rid of it. And today, putting the as many as I could out there with the minimum price to be finishing up as people were coming back to the game to get their rewards and check out the new event and stuff like that. Um, was I got rid of all of kind of the top end tradable cards that I have, just to be like, there you go, enjoy. They're not giveaways, it's not charity, but it is what it is. All right, thanks for coming back, Ryan. I was just babbling there for a little while, waiting for you to come back into the room. So I already went through EK65 skate and shot stats. I'll rattle off those 9 all in a row. It's literally, I'm just going to add 3 to all of them. That's what we know for sure is a linear progression. It's going to go from 89 to 92. So acceleration, agility, and speed will all get maxed from 96 up to a base of 99. Endurance a little bit below that at 97. Balance still lacking, but jumps same as the overall from 89 to 92. Slap shot and wrist shot power will go from 88 to 91. Just under that, wrist shot accuracy will go to 90, and slap shot accuracy pulling up the rear from 85 to 88. We know that for sure. And then I got into the handles that I feel like are pretty crazy, and definitely put him in a different sort of category than the Burns card. And the face stat says 93, and that is pretty true. The 4 handle stats are almost all 4 are 93. The only one that's not, weirdly enough, I guess, is hand-eye at 92, only -1 from that. So they're going to go from 93 to 96, and hand-eye will go to 95. So a 6 foot, 191 pound dude who has long legs, long stride, who people always think of as a very big dude. He's not Chara. He's not even Burns. Burns is 6'5", 230. So there's a big difference between these two guys as far as their size is concerned. But having 96 deking, if you're into deking, it just seems crazy to me. And it's paired with 95 on hand-eye as well, from a guy who's basically maxed out on his skate stats. It's gonna be crazy if some people are gonna be able to play with this. And even if you don't turn in the collectibles, assuming that they're going to do that, if you're unable to pack them or whatever, jump into a Draft Champions game and pick speedsters. You do that, 4 or 5 times. I guarantee that it'll come up as an option. You'll be able to play at least a game if you're terrible and can't win, or however many games you're going to be able to play up to 4. With that option. And if that wasn't enough for you, go back in and do it again until you get them again and play some more. It's not quite the same because you don't get to pick the rest of. I mean, you're literally choosing in the draft your other choices, but you don't get to play with the people that are actually on your team in Hut. Hey, Travis here. I pulled Blackwood and Shabbat last night. Well, you kind of got to hope that at this point, Trev, that there's no goalie in this stupid dynamic duos event coming out in almost. I was gonna say almost 6 hours. That's not right though. But was it 7 hours from now? Because those of us that went with the right defenseman, seems like we might have got played a little bit by EA here. At least as far as Carlson is concerned. I'm making a different case for Burns. I don't like the Burns as much. I think it's a hard sell on the Burns. I think that the Carlson, though, is you kind of make your own decision and based off of what you do and don't have. And honestly, like everything else, if you pull him in a reroll or some other thing that has him as untradeable, particularly if for whatever reason you're choosing your rivals packs as untradeable packs, you pull either one of these 292 MSPs that'll be out tomorrow, you're obviously hanging on to it. You're not putting it back into a reroll. That's just absurd. You could be like me, Trev, right, and pull two versions of the same MSP untradeable. That was fun. I put my other Muzzin into my lineup earlier tonight when I was just playing the one game for the dailies and the Hut Challenge or whatever, because my other Muzzin had run out of contracts, and I was like, I'm not going to use the contract on this one if I can just switch which one I'm using. So it's literally, at the moment, it's literally the only thing that's helpful in having a duplicate um, untradeable MSP of any type, and just kind of like hope that you get to like trade it in with something that's probably absurd to get his team of the year that I'm sure will come out at the end of the year or whatever. Um, yeah, so you said unreadable, but I'm sure you meant untradeable. Pulled them out of tradable NHL players back. That's pretty good, man. I haven't paid attention to the Shabbat. I frankly I don't give a shit about low end cards. Um, so I only look at them when people ask me to, and I don't think that you are asking me to. Torval is here as well. The whole gang. Ryan, feel free to say something. You can jump in. Don't feel like these guys are bumping you out on your ability to speak. Torval, do you want to see my team? It seems like you always ask. I will be willing to do that. Tavares and Marner dynamic duos. It's kind of hard to make that case, right? I mean, Johnny Tap Taps has been atrocious this year, just absolutely terrible. And they plan this stuff in advance, so in that sense, maybe it would work out a little bit better. Taking the guy that was on the Lightning who got moved over to the Leafs and just kind of assuming that he was going to be able to play well with anybody that's on that team. And a lot of the stuff that they had put out at that time, I don't like. Who was it? Was it just Matthews? There was other people that were already on the team that hadn't committed yet, but Matthews was the cover athlete, so like he was gonna. I don't. I'm getting confused now, but they have the whole, like every person on that team would or should or could be a superstar. So it just it'd be very interesting for the basically a day and a half, almost 2 days after they quote unquote finally get rid of their longtime coach that that they get two superstars to get massive cards in this game. That would be interesting if that happened. But yeah, I don't like. I'm not sure who else you would pair Marner with as a dynamic duo. But because Tavares has a fantasy card, he seems less likely to be included in almost any event that comes out. When I go to show Torval my team, which is severely lacking at the moment, there's actually nobody listed on this squad, which is why it says overall at 0. I had to go through and do that so that I'd be able to take all of my tradables and put them out onto the market. And you can only put up 25 at a time or whatever, and it already had like 4 or 5 out there. So I put up like 19 or 20 of them out there. And that's why it's showing it at 0. But I can switch to one of my other lineups or just go through a search or whatever and show some of the cards that are available. When I go to do that, I will look at very, very quickly the cards that are in the fantasy group that I can't think of off the top of my head, which I'm pretty sure none of them have been included in any of the events that have come out so far. With that being said, besides the fantasy event itself as an event, there really were only 4 other events so far, and tomorrow will be the 5th. So that's kind of a small sample size. I get it, but anyways, let's go back to Carlson and finish this up here real quick on him. Again, handles are crazy. What I was saying, I think right before stopping all that, and when Ryan first came back into the room, is that for me, I don't give a shit about deking at all. I never do it. I like the hand eye, but honestly, I prefer that more for like my centers who are playing crash the net, to have that, and preferably that with some offensive awareness for guys to get deflection goals and tip-ins. I think unless you're playing him as a forward in a special teams line, if you got EK65 getting a bunch of deflection goals at the front of the net for you, I think you might be playing him a little weird, to be honest. But it's there, it's a thing, and I like that the hand eye is there. But for me, I'm more focusing on passing specifically, and it's nice to have puck control to go with that. So the 2 of those at 96 are crazy good. Now let's move on to the other stuff, some of which is just kind of a mixed bag. Some's not good, some is good. So checking's not good, defense is good. Short version of that. Again, 6 foot 191. He's basically small, right? And we're talking about getting a minimum of +3 on everything. Trevor is back. Didn't know you were gone, but thanks for coming back. It was only 6 minutes ago that you said your last thing. But so strength. So again, we're just going off of everything getting a +3 from 89 to 92, and with the admission that certainly some stuff could get additional boosts based off of however they're trying to package the event as whatever the hell it's going to be. But at a minimum, everything should get a +3, right? And nothing is stopped at maxing at 99 with less than 3 points, because the top stuff are the top ones we already mentioned: acceleration, agility, and speed for Carlson at 96. Those go to 99. If they're not going to do this, but if they had if they had McDavid, for example, even though he already has a 91, if he had a 92 MSP, he's already maxed on those things at a base of 99. So like he'd get no boost at all on those things. And future versions of Carlson that could go above 92, even if you have to wait until February for those to come out, they also won't get maxed any higher than that, because 99 is where it ends. So getting back to checking, and then we'll go to defense, and then we'll finish Carlson up. We'll move to Bernsey, and then we'll go show Torvald the team, or who's left of it, I guess. Basically, I'm just going to be showing you who I have as untradables. That's all it is, really. Anyways, so checking, specifically body checking, is 79, +3 gets 82. I'm not a fan of that. To go with that, strength 84 +3 to 87. I think those are both really bad stats, even for an offensive defenseman, but particularly for a 92 overall card, and knowing that they only have 7 more points to go. This was something that I mean, I'm not trying to be like I told you so, but this was something that I pointed out during the very first broadcast that I did this year during EA Access, which was that without additional boosts, this was just kind of the fate that Carlson was going to be stuck to. That his checking was always going to be low. His strength and body checking was always going to be low all year. Because again, you add an additional +7 onto those, assuming that he gets a 99 as like maybe a community team of the year, because he's not exactly playing up to the standard of earning it. If that were if he gets any type of 99, no matter what it is, and it just goes on a normal progression, you're only adding an additional 7 to those. So you just, easier way maybe to think about it is you're adding 10 to what you see here. So his strength is going to max out at 94. And his body checking is going to max out at 89. I think even as for a 99 overall card, I think that's severely lacking, and there are going to be better choices if you care about those things. And most people don't, and I barely do, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. I would say for me, even though I might be looking to get on the body a little bit if I can in certain situations, if I kind of gun to my head had to choose between strength or body checking and couldn't have both, I would like this mix, where its strength is a bit higher than body checking, and in this case at 87, you're starting to get closer to 90, and that coming on a defender who's got the height but not really the weight, and also comes with decent balance at 92, is going to be one that whether you're basically cheating and spamming L2 LT or not, you're going to be able to try to keep him on the puck a little bit more and not get knocked off as easily, and it doesn't really hurt to be able to have the puck control and the hand-eye to go with that as well. The other two stats technically in the checking department are aggression and durability. Aggression is completely meaningless, and durability is just dependent upon your style of play. Aggression goes from 71 to 81. I don't give a shit. It's pointless. And durability goes from 73 to 76, and that is terrible. I think that people don't notice this as often. That the main way that you'll see that being a factor, particularly if you're the one looking to get in on the body with him, whether you hit or miss with it, or if he finds his way to getting tripped up on his skates and getting knocked on his ass, without it being a penalty that causes that to happen. If you really pay attention to these things, you'll notice these guys with these really low durability attributes. They're not stats, they're attributes. The really low durability attributes no matter how big, small, whatever they are, they just take longer to get back up. Plus, the difficulty level that you're playing at doesn't matter if it's versus AI or versus a human player or whatever, because even the humans are going to have some AIs on their team, obviously. Um, the higher the difficulty level is, the more compounded, let's say, that tendency is going to be. So the longer that these guys are going to be on their ass, whether you're controlling them or not, for them to get back up and then try to get back into the mix. And the only real reason why I feel necessary to point that out for this card, because I do think that this is going to be a good card tomorrow, is that if you're looking at this of like, wow, dude's got massive speed, got crazy good handles, and has pretty decent shot stats, and is not lacking on wrist shot in general, and is not lacking on accuracy on either one of them for a defender, you might be tempted, especially as we get into the awareness things right next after this. They're very good. You might be tempted to get into the mix more often when you're controlling him on the puck. You just have to be careful in doing that. That if you kind of go into that, and let's say you just have something as simple as, if you get all the way to the net, and you kind of get tripped up against the goalie, you've now taken one of your two defenders out of the mix. Regardless of if they have a true breakaway, odd man rush, or whatever, they're going to be advancing once they get that puck, and he's going to be on his ass, and it's going to take him at least a minute to get back up. And so you're going to have anybody that you're going to be playing him with, you're going to have those forwards out there that at a minimum are going to have speed and possibly some other things to be able to get back there on D to cover for him while he's recovering to get back. And if you don't, you're gonna find yourself out of position and getting your ass ripped way often, particularly even versus like superstar AI in squad battles, which a lot of people feel are easy games, but you're going to see that kind of stuff happening. All right, anyways. No one. All right, it says everyone left. Really? All right, well, feel free to say hello if anybody's still in the room. I thought I was talking specifically to you guys, even though I was going to point this stuff out anyways. Moving on to, defenses last here, but let's talk about awareness, because it's crazy good for him. His offensive awareness bumps from 93 to 96, which is, it doesn't matter that it's a 92 overall card. 96 offensive awareness for any defender is just insanely, absurdly good. Admittedly, that's pretty close to what Paul Coffey had on day one, but Paul Coffey's also the greatest offensive defenseman in the history of the game. So that's kind of a high bar to try to attain. And he's not really lacking for defensive awareness either. That's going to go from 90 to 93, and that's certainly huge, because his shot blocking, in my opinion, is terrible, and will get a little bit of a boost from 83 to 86 for his style of play. I'm not saying spam it or whatever, but his stick checking is going to be his key, really. Way more than shot blocking, from 89 to 92, same as the overall. So that's what you'd really be, in my opinion, looking for to be doing with him on defense, other than, just kind of getting in the mix, as long as, depending on your play style, I don't want to tell you to do the opposite of what would be helpful for you. But he does have, pretty decent defensive awareness. Whether you're the one controlling him or not, you can kind of have him out there, not necessarily on, particularly if you're doing collapsing or whatever, like not necessarily like right on top of the slot to whether you're getting into net battles and stuff like that, but to be there, knowing that generally speaking he's not going to be the greatest, because he's not very wide for shot blocking, and if you go to kind of press any of the buttons that would, depending upon how you play, that are going to allow you to kind of do the sellout dive for the shot block, he's generally not going to be as good at that either as some others would be. It kind of takes him a minute to get down to the ice, and that's a bit of an issue. And then even when he does, sometimes he kind of misses it a little bit or whatever. So knowing that, you can still kind of have him out there kind of clogging up those spots with the high defensive awareness and at least the height, if not the weight. And the weight's not terrible, but just pay attention to your own game of how you play it and what you're setting on your strategies of whether you're choosing them to do your offensive line for don't block or block, and any of your team strategies as far as their tendencies for how much they'd be clogging up the defensive side towards the net or whatever. My point is that generally I don't think he's the worst person to kind of have there, more or less creating havoc for the offensive team in those high dangerous areas. But if he's kind of there on his own, particularly, and if he's just kind of there and he's mostly just a stick and it always goes right past him, you know where I'm going with this. He all he's really doing is just creating a screen for your goalie. In some cases, even if you've got lines set for full on block as opposed to don't block, a lot of those guys, particularly on the higher levels, can tend to end up just being screens for your goalie more often than they can be actually being able to block. So just something to keep in mind. And as we finally finish this up here, there's only one more stat that means anything for him out of the remaining 4. Faceoffs is not it, but it will go from a ridiculously low 59, which is perfectly fine in my opinion, up to a 62. So that's huge, obviously. So go get the card because he's going to give 62 in faceoffs and start taking some faceoffs with Carlson. You suddenly win all of your games. It's a glitch. Nobody knows it. You're getting it here first because nobody's in the room and I'm talking to myself. Oh, wait. Nope. I thought that was something new and it's not. So again, as I said, discipline and fighting skill I think are bullshit and stupid. Discipline goes from 83 to 86. Fighting skill is 69 to 72, in my opinion. Without any boosts, if those are all of the stats, this particular card should not be like finding his own way into fights. And in fact, for you, if it gives you the option of kind of initiating the fight, which for me is kind of double-clicking triangle, that a lot of times, particularly of late, I feel like they might have tweaked it a little bit. I'll notice that even if it's something that he did that sort of initiated the fight, and I initiate slash accept the fight or whatever, he actually won't be the one to take it. Somebody else will jump in and do it for him. And I think that that's kind of helpful. And certainly with a boosted fighting skill stat up to 72, you got to be kind of good at it to be able to win with something that low. None of that I think matters though. I think I like fighting. I incorporate it into my game when I need to, but I think it's also completely stupid. And they're not stats. They're either tendencies as far as aggression goes, or they're more like characteristics or whatever. So the only one that I didn't mention on that bottom group that does totally matter and is actually super huge for him is poise at 93 would go up to 96. Again, not much more room to get up any higher. Things like poise, awareness, and endurance, and in some cases durability, were sort of meant to be some of the end game stats that people were going to be focusing on, that they might not have seen out of some of the other cards. And I think you see that pretty evident here. His endurance is there. His balance is still low, but his endurance is basically maxed. His awareness on both sides are pretty goddamn good for a defender. Poise is also basically maxed at 96. Durability is to be desired, but you're usually not going to have anybody that's maxed on all these things, whether it's just endurance, durability, and poise, or whether it also includes stuff like awareness and either hand-eye, usually more for centers that are crashing the net, or passing / puck control for defenders to be able to get out on the break. I went through all of those. If in fact we know for sure we're getting a 92 Erik Karlsson dynamic duo paired with Burns tomorrow. We don't know any of the synergies. We don't know for sure that everything is going to get a +3 at a minimum. I think that they will. I think there's also a decent chance that something, at least one or more, will get an additional boost beyond that +3. But even if they all just get a +3, what would any 92 Erik Karlsson look like? Which, you're not going to get a 92 exactly through Informs. You're going to next month in December, which is only a week away, a week and a half, whatever. You're going to have a 91 if he gets one, and then in January you'll have a 93. So you won't have exactly a 92. It's kind of like a December and a half, really, is what you're getting in advance here with this card. That's what you would get +3 across the board, and that's why I think it's worthwhile. Synergies could impact that. Additional boosts could impact that. And if they bring something down, like if they don't increase poise, if they don't increase the handles, if they don't increase awareness, despite going up to a 92, those types of things would totally impact my opinion. I think that it'd be really weird if they kept something like endurance down where it stayed as low as 94, despite other things getting boosts. So anyways, that's why Karlsson is not necessarily a buy, but I'll give it a hold. And then I'm going to show why Burns is a sell in comparison. I'm going to literally go through all of these, but since I just went through every single one in Karlsson, it should be much easier to do, to go through and then give a couple little caveats as to why it's a little bit different, right? So across the board, these 89s overall going to 92. So anything that you see here, and he's got a few that are at 89, they're going to go literally up to 92. So in comparison, to the crazy fast speed from EK, you're just not seeing that out of Brent Burns. His acceleration, agility, endurance, and speed all go from 89, same as the overall, to the 92. And for me, especially, a day after you could have turned in gold collectibles for the Charlie McAvoy or the Moritz Seider, it's just not good enough. This one here as an 89 comes with X factor synergy, which would give you +2 to speed. So I mean, if you have this 89 card on your team and X factor activated and SP activated, 89 becomes 91 with the X, and then 91 becomes 94 with SP. Unfortunately, acceleration, agility, endurance don't all go up the same with that, with those two synergies. But point is, I guess that for me, as a 92 overall, having basically 92 across the board on his skate stats, it will say in fact 93 as opposed to 92 on the face stat, but that's only because balance is so high. I think that it's severely lacking, and I don't see it as anywhere near endgame. I really also don't think that it's it's even the equivalent of a proper MSP at this point in the game, with the dampening of the overalls that they've done so far in the game. And why are you guys all still gone? Like, Torval, you wanted to see my team, right? I'll show you my team. Like, come back into the room. I don't know what's going on here, guys. Anyways, balance is the only one that really kind of goes up there from 95, practically maxed at 98. And for a 6'5", 230 big boy, you're definitely going to want that. Very key, and that is a very helpful stat. If you can deal with him being generally slow, and a bit winded with his endurance, particularly compared to the higher end cards that are already out and the ones that are going to come out after that, knowing that this is not going to be an upgradable card when you get this tomorrow, then God bless. Whatever. We'll move on to the other ones. So shot also lacking, but is getting better, and like the kind of standard defenders, he's heavier on the power than on the accuracy, but same as Karlsson, he's also better with his wrist than his slap. So slap shot power is 89 and wrist shot power is 90. So those will go respectively to 92 and 93. Not bad, but also not endgame, and looking a little bit weak compared to some of the others that have come out recently. And again, basically being almost exactly what you're going to get from power out of Karlsson. He's getting compared to Karlsson, he's getting a +1 on slap shot power and a +2 on wrist shot power, and it's not nothing, but it is what it is. And then accuracy, also he's definitely lacking on slap shot accuracy compared to Karlsson. He's going to move from 82 to 85, which Carlson already has at 89. And the wrist shot accuracy is only one off of what Carlson is. So that's for Burnsy here is going to move from 86 to 89. So again, you're looking at 93 wrist shot power, 89 wrist shot accuracy, 92 slap shot power, 85 slap shot accuracy. I don't think that is terrible. And 3 weeks ago, out of a right-handed defenseman, that would have been very good and one of the best in the game. Tomorrow, it's not going to be. So just kind of keep that in mind, and that's one of the many reasons why, since those are basically his best stats, I just really don't think that. I think this is a hard sell for me, honestly, as I said already, and I'm trying to make the point here as to why that is. So 6'5", 230, he's not going to be in there making those moves that Carlson or any of the young stars are doing. 83 deking and hand-eye gets boosted to 86, so it's a little bit better. I just really don't think that honestly, I don't think you're playing the game the right way if you're looking to get in there and mix it up with Deeks in the offensive third with this particular card that's going to be out there tomorrow. For me, though, I'm definitely liking passing and puck control going up from 89 to 92. Like some of the other things that are pretty decent, like his shot, I don't think it makes it worth it to go out and get, but it's good to see. Moving on from there, his overall checking is outside of his skate face stat is the second highest skate stat, which is that's kind of being very very picky on that, because the defense face stat is -1 and handles -2 and skate shot is -3. They're all pretty much right around the overall on the card, but it is technically the highest one outside of skate at 90. And you look at the checking, he's not really lacking there. You're looking at 88 on body checking and 89 on strength. And so those are going to move to 92 strength and 91 body checking. So as possibly a replacement for some heavy hitters out there. I could see that as he kind of moves into the 90s, but again, he's going to be extremely expensive no matter how you get it. So unless you pull an untradeable, that's kind of the only way you're unable to sell it. I'm still sticking with it's going to be a hard sell here. I'm just going to lump in aggression, discipline, and fighting skill together. None of that matters. I'd kind of prefer to have a lower aggression for all of my players. I don't really want them, kind of getting themselves into fights. But it is kind of helpful to have one of the 5 guys out there on the ice at a time if I do need to initiate a fight, for them to be able to have some skill, as opposed to, for some reason, guys like my Gretzky and my 91 Kotkaniemi are jumping into a bunch of fights lately and making it difficult for me to win them as easily as I would normally do with other players. But his aggression is going to go to 89. His discipline is going to go to 81. And then fighting skill to 87. I think none of that matters. Durability going to go from 88 to 91. Same deal as I was saying with the Carlson. He's got even less speed. If I guess maybe if you were tempted with kind of decent hand-eye, we're going to get into the awareness, which is also pretty good, and not just heavy shot with the power, but pretty decent from a wrist shot perspective. If you're kind of tempted to get into the mix a little bit, he's got to understand, you take that shot off once it's off of his stick and out there. If somebody went down for a shot block, and then you continue in your motion into them, you occasionally might get lucky for them to call that a tripping penalty, but other times they're going to say that you initiated the contact, and so it's kind of your fault. Now you're on your ass, and you're looking at a guy with 91 durability, which isn't nothing. It's not the lowest ever, but he's got that, plus he's got way lower speed, acceleration, and agility than the Carlson. It's gonna be that much more difficult for him to get back there to be a factor on the other side, or even honestly just to get back up and not have your team having to play as if they've only got 4 guys in the offensive third as they go to cycle the puck or do whatever it is you're looking to do. On the plus side, the remaining plus side that we have for him here, his defense isn't bad at exactly the same as his overall at 89. With the defensive face stats going to bump to 92, and you're going to kind of see why. I feel like it's definitely a slightly I don't know. It's not the worst. It's not the worst face stat that you'd see based off of the underlying ones, but it's essentially just awareness for him as a two-way defender. Both offensive and defensive awareness are going to move from 90 to 93, and that's pretty good. And for me, as I said, I'll take that along with the 92 passing and puck control for somebody that I would be looking to be able to handle himself and help initiate those breakouts and those rushes and stuff like that. But again, he's not going to do it for you as far as his speed and being able to get into the mix quickly. And then once he does, sort of typical defender in my opinion on the shot, being heavy on the power, but weirdly a little bit better on the wrist than the slap. So the awareness at 93 is pretty good. And as far as defense is concerned, he's not as egregiously bad as Karlsson was. With Karlsson's starting at 83 and boosting to 86 on shot blocking. Burnsy on shot blocking is going to go from 87 to 90, and that's it's not pretty and a little bit better than that. Stick checking is going to go from 88 to 91. And I was pointing out the stick checking for Karlsson being pretty decent at 89, and him being 6 foot. Burns being 6'5" and being 1 point higher than that, the stick checking is going to be pretty solid, and you're not completely lacking for an ability to have some shot blocking out of him with the higher number. He's coming with the exact same defensive awareness as Karlsson, but a little bit less offensive awareness. So from a defensive standpoint, even though again he's still going to be pretty slow to get back there, once he is there, he's definitely not a liability for you on the defensive side, and he's got the size, and he can get on the body. He's not the huge heavy hitter dudes that were 99 body checking in 90s, high 90s, 95 plus whatever in strength, that also had pretty decent either shot blocking and or stick checking as well as defensive awareness. Trevor, go back to class. I think it's just you in the room, Ty. I got it on live chat right now. I'm going to switch back to top chat and then back to live chat. So yeah, I haven't seen Trevor hasn't said a word in a half an hour, unless you're the one telling me that he had to go to class. But that's it. Really, none of the rest of the stuff matters. Face-offs are pointless. Goes from 64 to 67. And I already pointed out discipline and fighting skill get boosts, and it doesn't matter. They're stupid. And compared to this amazing, I feel like, poise out of Karlsson going from 93 to 96, it's 10 lower for Burnsy. 83 to 86 is helpful to bring it up a little bit. But again, I just like across the board, for people that think that some of these things don't matter, 86 poise, 91 durability, 92 endurance. The only one of the ones that not everyone cares about that's good is balance at 98, almost maxed out. It's a severely lacking card, and it's an extremely hard sell for me at 92. Coupled with the fact that this is his November inform at 89, and in before the event ends in 2 weeks, he can have at least one, if not two, informed for both a primetime and a team of the week, having different synergies between those two cards. As a 91, it'll only be an overall -1 from that 92, and assuming that happens at some point in December, a month later, the first week of January, you can get another inform to boost up to 93 and be a higher overall. So at that point, then the consideration has to come down to, are they going to give additional boosts beyond the +3 for any of the stats? Which ones would they do? I think it'd be stupid for skate stats to get boosted again. It makes no sense at all for Carlson because he's already maxed out on that. There's literally nothing to add to him when he gets +3 here except for maybe balance. The rest of it would be completely pointless. But both of these cards would definitely be able to get an advantage from shot, as would basically everybody in the game. I wouldn't be pissed if they chose to go with either one of the awareness stats. And the other stuff that I care about that not everyone else does in terms of like hand-eye or passing or even puck control. And then, as I said, the stuff like poise and durability, endurance and balance for most of the cards. Here, Carlson's endurance doesn't need much more, and Burns' balance doesn't need much more. So it seems like they should have known that this is where they were going to be with these two cards. These are the two that they're pointing out are going to be part of the event, assuming it is even an event. It's going to at least be a 2-card drop now, just in a matter of hours. For me, it feels like the shot one would be the most obvious one to do, and so that's why I'm saying with Burnsy here, if it's just a +3 across the board, then the only other thing that you think of is just the synergy. And the synergy, I feel like he's going to have the exact same synergy as the Carlson, and you're going to have both of them on the team. So like they'll be something weird, and they'll each get 2 points, and you'll need 4 to have it activated. So you have to have both of them playing on the team at the same time to get that synergy activated. And there's very few synergies that currently exist in the game that give you anything more than a +3 in anywhere from usually 2, 3, or even 4 different stat categories. So for me, for what you're going to probably have to go through to get both of these cards, I don't think I would do that for a synergy. So I think that the real factor, specifically for Burns for sure, is going to be anything that he gets beyond the +3, if they do that at all. Because again, if it's just a +3, if you can wait until the new year, he's gonna and if he continues to play, he'll have a card that's gonna have a higher overall and therefore be +1 in every single stat category compared to this 92 that's going to be out later on today. And literally, as I said, in a week, he could have another card that's only a -1 from that. So how much you really care about, a 1-point differential on a card that's, admittedly, in my opinion, really not that good, particularly compared to the other options that are now out there for right-handed defensemen. So there's that, and then there could be different things with the synergies. I guess if they make it so that there's that the event is dynamic duos, that these two are not just the two by themselves, that there's more than 2 MSPs. There has got to be at least 5, which would be weird to do an odd number. So like let's say it's 4 or 6, and then they're part of a larger group of like 30 or so that get released over the course of the next 2 weeks, and every single one of them has the exact same like event synergy. I don't know what they would call it. Like if it was passing playmaker that doesn't exist in the game yet, but did in 19, that could kind of make some sense. And then you wouldn't really be required to get the Burns to go with the Carlson. And that's not really how they do dynamic duos in other EA Sports titles. So that would be kind of weird for that to be how that gets played out. But that would be... It would actually be, for me, another way in which I would say that the Burns would be even more of a hard sell at that point if you don't really need him, and you could have, some stupid 83 that they're going to give you for free during the event, which actually those things are probably going to be 84s or 85s now at this point, that they're just going to give it to you, and it's going to have the same synergy to help you get your Carlson boosted or whatever. You could actually end up with a card like that in my opinion would be almost as good or as serviceable compared to other options at whatever that person's position is, as this 92 Burns is going to be. Talking to myself now. Awesome. Loving it. Love this channel. I don't know why I just didn't kill this channel. It's so stupid. So let's get a timestamp because I'm done with my explanation, more or less. more on or less. Geez, 2 hours. That is absurd. That is beyond absurd. I should just be sleeping. That would have been a much better choice. Um, so yeah, there's nothing else that I can kind of show on the screen here, as far as like again, I think there's nothing really wrong with the Carlson at 92, even though everything that I said as far as informs are exactly the same for Carlson as they are for the Burns. This is his November inform, so in a little over a week, he can have a December that's a 91, and a month later, he can have a January that's a 93. So, in the same way that if everything gets just a +3, how important is it for you to compare that to what you could get from a December inform that's just one off, or waiting until the new year to get the January inform that's technically a higher overall. Um, and you see with Carlson, the good part about his 92 being good is that he's basically maxing out on skates. His deking is getting up there very high. His awareness is getting up there pretty good. Poise is crazy high as well, and he's not really severely lacking in too much else. Um, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. So like if it wasn't that difficult, if they were just kind of giving away whatever it is that you got to do to turn in to do a set or whatever, assuming that that's what it is to be able to get the card, then it wouldn't seem all that bad to do that compared to those informs that again you assume will be there as long as he's still healthy and playing. Um, but at the same time, if the MSP is you assume going to be his only MSP that he's going to have outside of end of year cards or whatever, um, there's not really much more for him to go up on for additional boosts for that special edition card, right? Like if he gets massive boosts to his shot stats, then okay, I get behind that. So now, as I said this when I was talking about his card before, but the shot power, 88 goes to 91. If you even on just the, I don't know, either just the power or just the accuracy, or I for defenders, I feel like it's weird to do wrist shot, but if you're gonna pick two defenders that are really good on wrist shot, these are probably the two to go with, I guess. But um, so instead, if you make like slap shot accuracy and slap shot power both like 99, as opposed to the +3 that they would be at 91 and 88 respectively, then yeah, it's a much better card to have than even the 93 that you'd expect in his January inform. Um, but that's all things that you determine after you see what actually happens at 2 p.m. Pacific time today. It's all just conjecture at this point. I was just pointing out how these are the only two cards that have been shown to be part of the event for sure, and that I think that it's pretty safe to assume that they'll both be getting at least a +3 across the board at every one of the underlying stats. I don't think that it would be that far-fetched to see at least whatever the event synergy is plus two other synergies, possibly with at least one of them being a team-based synergy. Those sort of things can definitely help. But again, I think that it's going to take quite a bit for me to, as much as I like Burnsy and I like his size and I like even how his card has played. He played great last year in 19. I didn't think that base card I didn't think was the worst, at the beginning of the year. And I actually played quite a few games with the card, and felt like it was okay. But it was just I mean, back in September, this this 85, not just being the highest overall, between those two being tied as the two highest overall defenders as far as base current NHL players were concerned. Well, just current players at all, because you could have people in different leagues that were high as well, but none of those are anywhere close to 85. I mean, you look at this now, and just it's this particular untradeable one. Apparently, I got towards the end of October, but and I don't have. Apparently, I haven't played with it, but so I don't know why it has 11 games left on his contract. So I must have played in non-online games or something like that. I have no idea. But I did not notice that it's got Thread the Needle. Huh. That is interesting. I just started to pay more attention to that. I think it was actually Trevor, or maybe it was Ryan. One of the two. One of those two guys was talking up Thread the Needle, and I was like, man, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. And I looked at it and I was like, no, it actually is super helpful. It gives a +3 boost to both shot accuracies and passing. All three being things that are not maxed out for almost any card in the game yet. So at the moment, it is one of the few player synergies that I feel like are still pretty helpful. But presently, you see this card is completely unplayable. I mean, you can't play with a card that's 85 across the board: acceleration, agility, endurance, and speed, and there and below on his shot as well. It's completely unplayable, and it's just kind of crazy to see that difference between what that was back at the beginning of the year, the first not the first full month, but because this would have been pulled at kind of the end of that first month, which was actually more closer towards the end of October. But for the first week or two or whatever, it was a card that I was playing with probably more than I should have been until I did a little bit more of looking into the stats, and I felt like for the very beginning he wasn't playing kind of way out of my expectations, and I absolutely did not have Thread the Needle activated at that time. So it's not like he was getting that +3 on the accuracy and the passing from that. But once I kind of took another look at it or whatever, it was pretty quick that he was getting replaced with other cards for me. So yeah, is what it is. That's all we got are just those two. So as I said, I think there's nothing wrong. I'm doing this from the financial market analysis guys, the way that they do, buy, sell, or hold. I'm going with Carlson as a hold, which more or less means if you get it, again, obviously either one of them, if you get as an untradeable, you don't put them into a set yet. Wait till the end of the year to be doing stupid stuff like that. But you get either of these as a tradable. That's when the buy, sell, or hold comes in to be a factor. I say Carlson is a hold, and then you really just have to make your own determinations based off of how much it's going for, what other cards are part of the events that don't exist at this moment but exist later on today, as well as being aware of where everyone else is that's still currently playing that could get in forms that haven't had them for this month yet, as well as those that have had them in November and where you'd expect them in December. So like as an example, even though he's in a completely different position, you pay attention to guys like Crosby who didn't end up picking up his November upgrade, so effectively stuck at 89 and is dealing with the surgery and the recuperation for the remainder of this month in real life. Won't be getting any informs for November to boost to 91 the way that Kucherov and McDavid and a couple others that moved to either 91 or 90 have been able to do. And you'd like to think that that he'd come back that much kind of stronger and ready to play, and we'll be able to get a December upgrade. And so we'll go from 91 to 93 at that point. And those are just kind of things to think about when you're starting to look at these higher end cards from anything really, in my opinion, 88 and above that are not legend / icon / master icons or whatever, because those ones obviously can't get informs and it doesn't really matter for them, but you have to kind of compare them to the ones that can go up. So that's why I'm saying Carlson is a hold, and you kind of have to make that decision for yourself between buying and selling. And the term of holding, I don't think is the worst choice to be able to say if you pull it tomorrow in a tradable format, to just kind of hang on to it, play some games with it or whatever, maybe even play his full amount of contracts out to get your feel of how much you like playing with the card with your team and who else you have out there. and then kind of go from there and make your decision. Maybe even choosing to wait to see how everything else shakes out of who does and does not get informs for the month of November, and the expectations for who's going to get them early into December, as well as to see maybe when you look at it compared to who comes out, assuming it's an event. So we're going with that. I don't know that that's actually the thing, but assuming it's an event and it's happening like all the other events, so it's out for 2 weeks. There's a certain subset of cards that come out week one. All the MSPs, or at least these two MSPs included with that, and then you look at it and you're not really all that jazzed about the other choices, the non MSPs, particularly in week one. So you kind of hold it for a week and hope that it doesn't lose a ton of value, waiting to see what comes out in week two. And that can, in my opinion, can definitely impact how you should or could view those sort of things. The heavy hitters event, the 89 Doughty and Ovi, and the tallest man in the history of the world goalie, and a couple other cards came out week two of that event, as opposed to in week one. And some of the other events, in my opinion at least, week one was much better than week two was. And it so as we kind of wrap up the whole idea here, I will jump over to the sets for a general sense of what we might be looking at here, because less than 8 hours, good to know. Part of the issue, I guess, is that I have no idea what's going to be involved in making these things and in creating them. I kind of assume it's going to be sets like these, and it's going to be gold collectibles and yada yada yada. And I'll get to that in a second. But if you, what the hell was that? If the previous events before this one, to get a choice of one of three player items from each of the 2 weeks of the event, only, quote unquote, only required 3 gold collectibles. And admittedly, gold collectibles were not exactly always worth at least 50K or more during those events. So I could understand that being part of the whole thought process. I could also see a justification that, like, hey, there's nothing under 83 overall in this event, and there's a couple of non MSPs that are 90 and 89, etc. I didn't do this at all, this event, and I've done it in plenty of the previous events, which is kind of the reason why I wasted them all on all of the MSPs. I kind of didn't feel like the ones that were out there and the cards that I could get as coming out of them, even knowing that they were, unlike the MSPs, they were tradable cards. And going back to the leaders event, I actually have it up right now. You saw the 23 things that are on the marketplace for me right now. I literally have my last version of it on the marketplace right now, and I actually don't really want to get rid of it. I don't want to stop playing with it. He's a 99 face-offs for me, and I've got others who can kind of be that good as well. But I decided to get rid of all my tradable cards. But the 86 leaders, Steven Stamkos, I pulled like either 3 times in a row, the first 3 times that I did this set for the leaders, which again only required 3 collectibles. And again, whether you were doing the 50 gold players to create those as untradeable, or whether you were buying them in the marketplace and stuff like that, it wasn't the most difficult thing in the world to get one of them for less than 50K. But even if you assume 50K, at the time you could turn around, and I did, you could turn around and sell that Stamkos for more than 150K, and then kind of try it again, even though there honestly weren't a ton of better cards outside of the MSPs in that event, as far as being like worth more than 150K or whatever at that time, and they're worth even less now, as everything is. That's the whole point, is diminishing value or whatever. But I don't think that. No, that's not true. I think I saw somebody posted. if I did though, I only saw like one or two people post it, and I have no idea if they how much I could trust it or whatever. Um, but I've not seen anybody that I can think of off the top of my head who's a kind of prominent person slash game changer slash content creator or whatever who has shown doing these choice sets in either one of the weeks for any of the events and pulling an MSP out of it. So they don't give you odds for anything in terms of what you can get from it. It's just a choice of one of three. So it is a choice pack. It opens up a thing, and you can open them all three at one time if you want to, or technically if the first one has to open, and then you can open up the other two at the same time. That's just semantics, though. Or you can go one at a time and give yourself pleasure delay and hope to see some purple and stuff like that and some good stuff. But you're gonna have three there, and you get to choose one. That's what you get out of that. They are tradable. That is helpful. And I know this event, plenty of people pulled the 90s and the 89s. So uh, the Byram and the Puljujarvi and the other higher end cards have been pulled from this as well, but also through like just general packs as well. I mean, somebody again, I don't know one way or the other. But it did seem like it was somebody who wasn't just using Photoshop or whatever. Somebody had posted in the last 24 hours, pulling I think it was a tradable one too, pulling out of a base pack this Blackwood here, the 91 overall Mackenzie Blackwood MSP for this event, which oddly enough was I think the first one that I went with in this. I either went with him or the EP40. Those were the first two that I went after. Um, and admittedly, seeing two different right defensemen, 92 overall, coming out in the very next week, I kind of feel like maybe I should not have jumped on the defenders quite as much. McAvoy was in fact the last one that I did, and it is what it is. Um, but yeah, I didn't do the choice set either one of the 2 weeks in this event, and what the event before that was heavy hitters. Did I do that at all I think I did the week. I think again because of what I said on the difference between week 1 and week 2 on that one. I think I did week 2 once in that, kind of hoping for Doughty or Ovi. Um, Actually, I think all that's completely wrong. I think what happened was I tried it like it wasn't working. I think I have this as a broadcast on this channel actually, and hopefully I put the right title on it or whatever, so you can go back and look at it from what's now almost what's at least 3 weeks, if three to almost 4 weeks ago. Um, I think what happened. I hate that sort of would be they're not my peers, so it's not really peer pressure, but the social media pressure or whatever. I think what I saw um, that Jay Thrash had tried the choice set like an obscene amount of times, like 4 or 5 times or something like that, and then uh, like he'd either done it already like 3 or maybe 4 times, maybe even 5. And then somebody, I think it was Henrique, had posted that he tried it once and he pulled whatever he pulled. He pulled the Doughty or the Ovi or whatever. And so that and was like, all right, I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm convinced. Henrique told me to do it. He did it, and then like he got that. He either pulled like the Ovi or the Doughty, and I was kind of in the same boat. I think I don't know if I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I tried at least once before, and hadn't got it, and so I figured I'd try again. I might have got it just on the second try, but I know I did it after seeing Thrash do that as a result of seeing Henrique do that, and it's just this whole goddamn snowball effect that we go through. For those people, even myself, that aren't really even part of that whole community and the content creation and all that stuff. Um, but it convinced me to do that, and I think that is actually how I got the tradable Doughty. Um, and in the end, it ended up not being worth it. It was only 3 collectibles at that time, but everything that you'd be looking to sell was going for less than 150K. If I were able to have been, if I would have been able to sell it for what it was going for at that time of 300K, it would have been close to coming out even from having done those sets. But I think it was still a little bit of a loss. If I'd sold it at the max, I clearly didn't. I got 2/3 of its value today for 199K. Um, and yeah, so now this is where we're at, where it's still just one. And I'm not trying to jinx this and put a make us put in 2 gold collectibles for the 33 percenter. You basically you get you're lucky if you get base Barkov off of this dealie here. So it's almost pointless. And so adding more than 1 gold collectible to that would be just completely egregious in my opinion. I don't want to see this increase any more either, even if now that the MSPs are moving up to 92, you could see for sure, a couple of 91s in there, and then maybe even a handful of 90s and 89s, and those could be factors in there. But you just know that the odds are way more in favor of you getting 2 duplicate untradeable Maxime Comtois that I have from this event. So yeah, so I definitely don't want to see an increase from 4. I think anything beyond 5 would just be absurd. And I am slightly concerned that they decided from going from all 90 MSPs that they had in every previous event for the gold collectibles, requiring 10 of them. And admittedly, the gold collectibles themselves weren't exactly 50K all year. And in case that's not super obvious, we could jump over into the icon sets screen to point this out, that there was a time, even when you could put in 50 gold players for an icon collectible, you could also put in 2 gold collectibles for 1 icon collectible. And it wasn't as if the icon collectibles were going for a great deal more than 50K at that time. I think that this was one of those things where people didn't really know how to price these early on, and certainly when you get into the 90 and then the day that this switched over to a choice out of 4 on all the sets, and these 2, the Gretzky and the Lemieux, which I decided to do and just have them as untradeable just to keep me from getting rid of the cards basically, and assuming that they would be turned into 97, 98, or 99 golds later on, and hopefully not requiring my firstborn to be able to get that done. I decided to do that, and then sell the ones that I had. I think at one point I had tradable of both of those, but maybe not. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. The point being, everything except for those final 2, all the 90s were available on day 1. You had to wait a week. If you tried it, at that time you only got a choice of 2 out of the 5 that are in that set. If you didn't get the one that you wanted, LaFleur, then you're gonna have to do it again. But that was day 1, and so I feel like people didn't necessarily, myself included, didn't really know how to properly price out these icon collectibles. So there were definitely some times where some people were probably able to sell an icon collectible maybe just on a one-off. Definitely not a ton of them for maybe as much as like 75K, and gold collectibles might have been closer to like 35. So if you could go and on the market right at that moment, like buy 2 gold collectibles for 35K a piece, and then turn around and sell the icon collectible for for basically twice that at 70 plus, then this whole thing here made a lot more sense. It doesn't anymore, and so now I'm wondering if they're gonna like kind of course correct that and change it back to what it needs to be. Particularly since of late I've sold I sold most of the tradable gold collectibles that I had for more. I refuse to sell any of them for less than 50K. So I think that the lowest I went was about 54, like 54.5, and I've had as higher than that, probably close to 60. I kind of missed out. Again, I didn't have access to being able to sell in the auction house when there was a little brief time there where they were they were regularly going for above 60. Um, but back to the actual point, if there was one, I was on board with everyone else being not super pleased on the choice change here, where they went from all the previous events having 90 overall MSPs to just a plus one. Now I get that you could try to make the weird argument that the difference between a 90 and a 91, when they can only max out at 99, is effectively giving one out of potentially 9 of the remaining points out there. So it's actually more than a 10% increase. It's 1/9. I still think even with that weird ass logic that I'm not saying they used, I've heard it from players, gamers, but I've not heard any officials say anything like that. Um, if that was the idea, and I have to assume that all or most of this stuff was laid out, well in advance of before the game was released, up to and including who the exact players were that were going to be included, and what they were going to cost as far as collectibles on trade-ins and stuff like that. For me, I know it would have been a weird number to do, but it would have felt much cleaner if this was only 11 collectibles to get these 91 MSPs, if they felt obligated to increase the amount of them, if only to try to keep the other people, usually the vocal minority, from bitching about it, about saying like, hey, I turned in 10 last week and I got a 90, and now this jerk gets to turn in 10 this week and they get a 91. And it's like, yeah, the game progresses. Everyone knows that. Why did you not like plan ahead? Um, so I think a better middle ground would have been moving it to 11. And now that in what is it, 7.5 hours from as now I'm speaking, and unfortunately for you, I'm at least over 2 hours into this. So by the time you get to this point in this thing, you're only gonna have maybe a few hours before this event pops off. Um, Moving to 92 from 91, and even using that weird ass backwards logic again, that it's an increase of one from a remaining 8, that suggests that it's a 1/8 increase. So it should be a 12.5% increase in the cost. I mean, come on, it really should not go above 12. I don't like the unlucky number of 13, but I'd be more on board with 13 as opposed to 14. And if they make this thing 14 or 15 gold collectibles, whether it's just those two, Burns and Carlson, that you can do, or whether there's, whatever it is, one, two, three, or four others included in the event, assuming that it is an event, or if it's just a single set, um, the way that I thought there was one out here. Maybe was it was the Gretzky and Lemieux originally combined? I don't remember. I don't think that it was. I think I made a point of pointing that out when that first came out. But how they've separated out each one of these, as opposed to, they definitely could have made it, and maybe they did this in the previous events. I'd have to go back and check my videos. Um, but in creating the MSPs, you could make it where, like, all 5 of these would have been included in there, and instead of you seeing the picture of the individual player, it would be, okay, turn in 12 gold collectibles for an MSP, and then it's a choice pack from those 5 players, and therefore a repeatable, usually, set that you can do. And you go in, you get your collectibles, and you choose your thing. Those would usually come with some form of a cooldown, minimally at least an hour, in some cases a day. There were also, I think, some of the events that came off. Part of the reason why, even the crazy people like me, who have shown that they're, sometimes willing to go ahead and get all 5 of them. I believe at least one of the original events didn't even give you the choice of doing that, where it was this kind of thing where it was just a single set, and you had to choose which one you wanted to take from it. And I think that you got to do it twice, so it basically had like the equivalent of a week cooldown on it. So you did the set, you made your choice of which one you wanted, and that was during the first week. And then the second week, it was literally the exact same set, but then you put your 10 gold collectibles back in. You get a choice set again. Obviously, don't choose the one that you already have an untradeable of, and then you choose one of the other ones. Um, I even think that there was maybe even into like the second or third event, um, that you could have had like up to like three, as opposed to five of them, from simply doing the sets. Um, is I think what I got out of it, like where I was told by others that you got to choose who you really want because you only get to pick one. But however it worked out, like maybe I did the first one like the instant that it came out or whatever, and I did the second one like the instant that that was an option into the second week, and somehow I got the third one. Um, I and that might have only just been because if it was say like the Chelios heavy hitters or whatever, um, that was kind of a different set because I used the silver icon to create that as opposed to doing the MSP with all of the gold collectibles. So yada yada yada. I'll stop talking at this point. My overall point is, especially if it's June and the burns, I think that it would be absurd for it to cost 14 or even 15, gold collectibles to create either one of those two. And I think I made it pretty clear that I would be way more on board with going with the Carlson over the Burns, if they don't have anything kind of special beyond the +3 that they're going to get from that. Um, I don't really think that either one of them, if they are just +3 with a special type of synergy and not really much else as far as anything else like synergy or whatever compared to any of the other cards that are already out there. Uh, I I'm not sure how I'm, especially after having gone through this event and done these five cards specifically, and now have them already on my team as untradeable. I guess that might be affecting my bias, and I'll try to be aware of that. But I kind of am not super on board with if that's what those cards are going to be is simply just a +3 across the board. And I already went into great detail on every single one of the stats on what they would be for both of those two cards. Um, I I can't really get behind turning in 12 gold collectibles for those cards for either one of them. Again, I think the Carlson is way better than the Burns. I don't think it's even close. Um, it could come down to play style. If you need a bigger bodied guy who's not going to get taken off the puck as much, great, fine, whatever. But he's also extremely slow. So, and there probably are better options if that's kind of all you need is a big bodied guy to play defense for you. So, hey, it looks like people are in the room. Feel free to speak up about whatever you like. If that's you, Torval, if you want to see the team, I have not shown it in the video, and I was probably gonna call it quits with this pretty soon. Um, but yeah, so for me, it's partially because I have two right defensemen who are 91 overall and pretty good in my opinion. But also the fact that those exist and there's other informs that are getting up there. There were other non-MSPs that were part of this event that weren't that bad, and so there might be other MSPs in the next event that wouldn't be all that bad. And then you got to figure it's we're not that far off from getting into the holiday season where there's going to be some stuff dropped there, uh, to further entice people to get the game. And in fact, this event today really should be kind of the first major marketing thing the since day one, that they should be doing, to try to convince people to get out there and buy it, because this is what's likely going to be in the game when Black Friday hits in a week. So it seems like it should be the selling point. I don't know. I can't really get behind 12 gold collectibles for an untradeable uh, Carlson. Absolutely not the Burns, not even close for me. But even the Carlson, I think that, um, one of the main reasons why I was okay with the Cider and the McAvoy uh, for what I see as basically an obscene, or at least a high amount of gold collectibles trading in for an untradeable card, was the fact that the Cider was never, through informs, was never going to come anywhere close to 91 overall. McAvoy was going to get a little bit closer, but was going to take quite some time for him to get there. Um, and so that was kind of part of my thinking. And Carlson and Burns specifically are like the exact opposite of that. I've already pointed this out many times, but in 1 week's time, both of those cards could have, and it could even have a different type of inform. One can have a prime time, and one can have a team of the week. It doesn't matter; they're the same overalls. But in in a little over a week's time, both of them could have December informs that are 1 point lower overall compared to these MSPs that are dropping today. And I don't really understand how you can't take that in, can't, won't, or whatever, can't take that into consideration when trying to determine your value for that. And as I look to end, because nobody has said anything, looks like there's only one other person in the room, so I don't feel the need to show my team here at this point, besides the fact that I've got all 5 of these. And I generally play with all 5 in my lineup. So you can figure out the other 15 cards ahead. I showed Gretzky and Lemieux. Generally play with those 2 as well. So there you go. Now you know 7 of the 20. You can figure out the other 13 for yourself, I guess. I mentioned at least 1 or 2 of the other ones as well. But point being, yeah, I don't really feel the need to show the team. I'm not super hyped for what to expect from this. If they come with some sort of like kind of crazy boosts, if they're better than just +3, if there's some other exciting MSPs besides those 2, if there's in week 1, if there's non-MSPs that are exciting, all that kind of stuff could definitely change my mind in presently for me just 7 hours and 15 minutes time. But I think that it's not a super long shot, but I think it's also not very likely. So it's somewhere in that, and it's leaning more towards being unlikely. Um, that I'm unlike. Well, first off, I had much higher expectations for what this current event, which ended up being this Young Stars event. I had much higher expectations for what it was going to be, and was super let down by what it ended up being. And then eventually kind of convinced myself, like, okay, hey, these guys aren't ever going to get up that high, so it's okay to drop down on it. But that was kind of where I was at going into this, was I had an extreme overabundance of gold players. I had a decent coin bankroll that I had built back up from 0, and I, along with also not having the cards that I had sold that allowed me to have the original million coins that got taken. So I didn't have those cards anymore because they had already sold, and I didn't have the coins that they went for either. So that was kind of a double whammy there. But building back up from the coin bankroll that I had a decent amount at that time. I'd been kind of hoarding my untradeable gold collectibles. I had some tradable ones that I was also kind of hoarding, and a bunch of gold player cards that had next to no value that I could turn in. And obviously, if you have the coins, also like the coins that I have here, used to mean that I could be able to get like 100 gold players with that, which would get you two collectibles. Presently, that's not the case anymore. I'd get less than two, but more than one. I'd be able to get more than 50, but less than 100. For that exact amount of coins, which I don't know if you can see, but it's just shy of 74,000. But I'm not looking to hoard for this event. Coming into it with basically the exact opposite of what I had 2 weeks ago, much lower expectations. Even though this is the only one that we know in advance anything about it and what's going to be dropped. I like both players. I like how both players play in the game a little bit. For Burns, a little bit less this year than I did last year, but still, I think they're both fine, and it would be tons of fun to play with the 92 Carlson, really would. But I'm not out here, in the Hut coin streets trying to amass what's going to be at least 12, if not, whatever, 13, 14, 15 gold collectibles to try to turn into that card. Um, I'm not feeling it at the moment. Again, if it's just a 92 that gets a +3 across the board. So hopefully I've made all of that painfully abundantly clear on my views and what I'm thinking about there. I'm going to check the chat thing here again real quick just to make sure no one's trying to talk at me that I would be not seeing for some reason. Um, so hopefully that answers it. I mean, I've still got some untradeable gold collectibles, and I've got I think a couple of tradable ones left as well. Um, and I don't know, I've got enough coins. Unless they spike up in value instantly, I got enough coins to be able to buy one, or buy players to be able to get one. But otherwise, I'm mostly tapped out. And was looking to kind of take a break and leave the game, as I did this time last year also. Um, so I thought there was one other thing that I wanted to show, um, but I guess not. So also, there's going to be packs. These. Whoa, what's happening there? Oh wow, somebody bought. Huh. Good times. But uh, wait, that was 23 that whole time. So that was just sitting there. It was just waiting for me to click on a thing that was going to create that. Um, yeah, the Besser. I mean, I went with a really, really low price. Um, it's kind of disappointing for me, honestly. I got rid of two guys that have Thread the Needle, and I'm currently in love with Thread the Needle. It's possibly my favorite player only slash player based synergy to have. I think both of these cards are just kind of crazy good. Um, I didn't have Besser very long, as you see. I got him on the 13th. Um, but and kind of unfortunately, when you see what he's got going on there, shots not the best, right at 90 without the boosts, and speed also not the best, but good at 94. There's just, in my opinion, it's pretty clear that he's not the best right-handed shot. I mean, he's not better than Super Mario for sure. So for me, I was definitely kind of lacking back end guys with right-handed shot on offense, and he kind of fit that bill, um, but it seemed kind of, I don't know, it seems kind of a waste to have a tradable card like that you just know is going to go down in value, and it already has from when I could have originally sold it. Um, to be kind of filling out that back line. And honestly, the Dowdy for me ended up being pretty much the same, since I've got the untradeable Chelios as well. And I'm not saying that Chelios is better or worse. I do kind of feel like the Cider and the McAvoy, even though the McAvoy I've only had for a few days now, I do feel as though, generally, I've liked having those two a little bit better, but they're also untradeable, and I can't do anything about that anymore. It's sunk cost at this point. So having a tradable one and wanting to get just a little bit, put these two up at actual prices and less than what most other ones were going for in the market. Whereas everything else that's going to be ending from this point on. Wow. All right, we're gonna get some coins out of Mickey D. I prefer if that went up like 4x from where it's at right now. I haven't looked at this at all, since putting these up. I put these up for. Well, I've been doing this for a long time because I put these up for 12 hours, and that was right around the time I started this broadcast. Um, so that's obviously the crown jewel, but the other ones aren't that bad. There's some MSPs in here. Wow. I mean, admittedly, again, that should also go higher, and the next one should be even higher than this. But we'll see. We'll see if people are on board with them yet. So I guess I'm gonna have some coins. Um, but if you look at this, like 425, if that's what they ended, I don't think that's what they're gonna end at. But if that's what it ended at, not bitching, and you look at the 190 now, I guess that I got up on top with having sold the Besser and the Dowdy as well. Um, so you're talking about a 91, which was at the time the highest rated card in the game as an inform in November. That obviously could get a December 93. Doesn't need it from a speed perspective. Um, as I said, acceleration, agility, and speed are all 99 for McDavid already. Um, the only difference between this and that 92 Carlson, if it gets a +3, is his crap. Which one was it? Was it endurance or balance? Now I'm getting a little confused, but I think that also either balance or endurance was 99, but maybe not. No, maybe one was like 97 or 98, and then the other one was kind of lacking. I think that's what it was. So either way, they'd be a little bit better than this was for the McDavid, but it's also technically a +1. But point is, like between these two, I mean that's 425. That's you're lucky if that's you know um, uh, like 9. Um, I, I, maybe you could find a way to get like 10 collectibles out of that, but probably more like 9. And if people get crazy with this stuff, you might only even be able to get 8. And that's not even taking off the 5% tax that I'm going to be paying off of those bids, which is just not nothing. 425, 5% of both of those. So I'm gonna be losing 21. If these sold exactly what they are right now, I'd lose 21,000 out of that 425,000. So it's basically 400,000 at that point. So yeah, so basically 8 collectibles from trading in a 91, you know, possibly best some people's consideration of best player in the game or their favorite player or whatever, and the best card available for him in the game, along with a 90 MSP that I'm super sad to see go. I mean, it's not just that it's not just like I was here for the 99 slap shot power, but the 99 endurance it makes it end game already. And not exactly lacking on the other stuff either. And it sucks that you don't see his stats there now that it's sold, but he or now that it has a bid. Is that how that works? I don't know. I played in online games with him. He had tons of stats. I guess they just don't show it on the screen for some reason. Whatever. Anyways, again, this is what I was talking about before. That hand-eye is 93. His offensive awareness is not super high, so it doesn't give a ton of boosts for him specifically, but 89 is not bad. So that combined with the 93, he gets a ton of tip-ins. Plus, for me, having to kind of get more aggressive as I adjust my play style a little bit, that I'm going to have to readjust now that I've lost all these amazingly good cards, is that, I definitely do kind of notice at times if I happen to be just kind of moving to get active and to try to stay and keep puck possession not necessarily 50-50 pucks, but when there's kind of something that happens and the puck is open in the offensive third, my offensive third, and I just kind of need to go with what I very quickly perceive to be my best option for getting onto that puck. And if I do that and it's him and he doesn't have a ton of pressure on him, I guarantee you that 99 slapshot power with extremely weak slapshot accuracy means I am probably looking to blast one. And if I have enough time to think about it in that split second, I am going to look to do more of the, not full power, taking a little bit off of the power, and kind of aiming low middle, and doing that more often. If there's any sort of traffic from my guys in front of the net, to try to get those tip-ins. And honestly, with him and with Kuko and Niedermeyer, which I'll get to in a second, unfortunately he's gone as well. So spoiler alert there. But kind of those 3 guys, and having different stats amongst them. I have found obviously Kuko makes the most sense because he actually has 99 slap shot accuracy, so it's a much different situation for him. I guess it's unfair to lump him into the to that group, but those three guys and a couple others that are like that have these massive power shots that I'm generally looking to, not really look. I'm not really looking to go top corner with them the way that I would with others. I'm looking to just kind of get it on net and not really pray, but like hope for the best or whatever. Particularly with a guy like Lundqvist, who's severely lacking in accuracy. I could go to do that, and it seems like almost like on the higher difficulty level that it is. When I go to do that, his accuracy is so bad that as I look to go for a slightly less powerful but still true slapper as opposed to a snapper, aimed basically at the 5 hole or kind of just dead center with somebody out there for a deflection. I go to do that, and he tends to pot it home. Either off the kind of midpoints on the crossbar or again on the top corners, not like all the time. He gets a ton of times where he just misses completely, and he also hits the bar and it goes off into the stands a ton of times and stuff like that. But often enough, those things go in. And when you're talking about, for me, a lot of my games, even if they're 20-minute period games, my sweet spot tends to be about 3 goals. Now that I'm starting to actually win some games. So I'm not like Mike Babcock here. I'm not trying to be like, hey, we're looking to have every game be 3-2. We're looking to have every game to be 3-2, 2-1, and maybe even 1-0 or whatever. And then we're just gonna kind of sit back and let it be what it is. Like, I'm not saying that, but I am saying I'm not very good. First of all, I point this out as often as I possibly can. I am seemingly improving. I don't know if that's actually true or just seems that way. Um, but for me at least, if I can get any of these guys, Lundqvist was included. He's now gone. In 7 hours, this card will not be in my possession anymore, and I'm not going to get enough coins from the sale to go out there and buy one. And I think there was only one other one on the market at the moment, anyways. So as you hear me talking, I'm definitely very much thinking that this was a pretty poor choice selling this, but it is what it is. Um, but the point was like being able to get just even an average of a goal per game, usually not that high, but somewhere around that from him and from Niedermeyer, from Kuko and from a couple others like that. I was more than happy to take those in, because it kind of make or break being able to get the win in that particular game. The point I was making was that this is a 91 prime time. That was the highest and best card in the game at the time that it came out. That hopefully will go up a little bit in its bid in the next 7 hours. I kind of want the Lundqvist to go up a little bit too. But again, we're looking at a net of 400K between these two, dropping a 91 and a 90 MSP. Again, with that MSP being a card that you can't do sets for anymore. There's not a Silver Master icon for him that would be part of a sunset trade-in set that you could do later on, the way you did with Chelios and Gretzky and uh, uh, Iserman and Roenick. He just doesn't have that. He's still a current player. So that's not going to happen. So again, you're talking about what, like 8 collectibles. So I'm likely going to be at best 8 out of 12, or 3/4 of the way towards enough gold collectibles to do one of the MSP sets that admittedly is going to be a 92 overall. I don't think it's worth it. So I mean, I really need more than these on coins from these cards, and when that doesn't happen, I think it's just going to kind of push me towards just putting the game down and walking away for as long as I possibly can. Niedermeyer, okay, only 2. That needs to go up as well. and for him, he doesn't really have the shot quite as much. He's more so that he's got the speed, uh, and he's got the massive acceleration. But for me, for him, his whole deal was basically max offense and defensive awareness. Um, and 99 poise, he could be taking the shots kind of more towards end game, end period, that sort of stuff, and get those in. Um, but as I said, for me, I'm not looking for guys to deke or really be too focused on hand eye. I'm more about passing and puck control, and you can't do much better than this. And it's one of the many reasons why, go over if you don't. There's nobody in the room now, so go if you don't believe me. I'm sure he'll change it for this week. I I don't know if I've seen the latest weekly update from Cameron at Sleeveless Gaming, but he was saying that this McDavid, in his opinion, was the fourth best left-handed forward. And most of the time, that's where I was playing him, was either the third or the fourth line. Although a lot of times I was putting in guys like Morenz or uh, who was the other one? Or somebody else in one of those spots. Yeah, the last game I played, I had EP40 on the front line, Gretzky on the second line, and then I think McDavid I moved to the third, and then Morenz on the fourth. I feel like Morenz has kind of moved out of favor for No Sleeves 12 for some reason, and he's, at least as of like last week or the week before, I forget which, he was still on top of the classic NHL 90 MSP Rantanen, who I have not been a fan of really at all. I had his loan, and at that time cards were much worse than they are now, and I felt like it didn't really play that well for me. Um, so yeah, I was not on board with saying that was definitively the third or fourth best. I forget which one it was. He put this one as either the third or the fourth, and Rantanen was the other one. I think Rantanen was the fourth last week, and McDavid would have been the third, I guess. Um, so, anyways, it's up there, and then Lundqvist. I think he was saying that he felt like this was second best center, behind only the 90 liters Taves, and pointing out for him that Taves was probably going to get surpassed by some others at some point soon. But Lundqvist was still up there as number two, and for him, Niedermeyer was what? What did he say? I know he was still up there, so I know he was still top three. Kuka was one, and so I forget if he moved Muzzin in or out, and had said that he was two or three. But I think that it was basically just those three guys. So it was the two different leaders, the Niedermeyer and the Kuko, and then the heavy hitters Muzzin. All MSPs, all 90 overall. I think were his three choices for left-handed defenders. I have the untradeable 89 Silver Master icon Paul Coffey, and if that fucking thing even gets like a +2 or +3, it suddenly I think has to come right back into consideration for one of the top cards in the game. Um, and certainly if it gets up to like a 97, that it is the best left-handed defender, and possibly one of the best defenders overall in the entire game if that were to happen. Um, Conversely, I had for a very long time the Dahlin as well, but I had that as tradable and traded that in, and I need to stop wasting my coins on packs just for quote-unquote content, since this isn't even a real channel anyways. Um, I think it's just basically an excuse at this point because I got used to doing it and I fell into that kind of gambling mode. But seeing what I'm getting for these at the moment, that's 625 right now, with 7 hours left to go on three of, not even arguably, three of for sure the best cards in the entire game. Um, Looks like one of the auctions just ended. What the hell happened there? All right. It was the silver that didn't sell, I guess. That's fine. Put it in. Um, but yeah, these three, they're to me they're clearly three of the best in the game, and it sucks that it's 625 right now, and hopefully go up from there, because there were times where all three of them were going for that much by themselves. So this should really be closer to, if not 1.8, at least 1.5 between the three of them. and it's just kind of not happening. Ben minimum, tallest guy in the world, 6'7", 222. It's not like he's lacking for weight either. Also at the minimum, Stamkos, that's nice. Looking at 92, 222. Kind of thinking I want to buy that back later though. Hiller, interestingly, has a higher bid than the Hovinen. I mean, personally, I kind of liked having the 99 5 hole and the low aggression, but Hovinen has basically the exact same aggression and generally slightly better stats around. So maybe somebody's just thinking that 5 hole's the way to go on blocking that because fast with a -1 gives you 99 glove height that some people think is absurd and pointless, and it's not at all. It's a great card. If I didn't have the two best goalies in the game, I'd be definitely going after it. And this guy was the original. And people need to give me more than 1,000 for this because that's absurd. Pekka doesn't even have a bid at this point. I mean, stop lying to yourselves, kids. Like, you do not have 4 guys that have above 98 in faceoffs because it only goes to 99. It's not like he's bad across the board. He's not really great at shooting. Obviously, he's kind of small, but he's got the speed. He's got good awareness on the defensive end as a grinder. He's actually able to check despite his speed. I mean, despite his size. And he's crazy on faceoffs, and his poise is super high as well. So, I mean, it's a great card. It's absurd. You see there, I had it on September 14th. I had Burke on the 15th. Sad to see these guys go, but kind of got to move on with the game, and it's going to be easier for me to do that if I can just kind of get rid of some of these guys that I have become very attached to, even though I haven't been playing with them as much of late. Like Pekka would get into more games than Burke specifically, just because I've been trying out those higher end goalies, including the 3 that I just showed that I'm also selling right now. These were mistakes, and I will definitely regret this if for some strange reason either of these 2 specifically get their Gold Master icon upgrades today. But I got them pretty cheap. I felt like on the marketplace. It was kind of a late night decision that I made that wasn't really a good idea. So hopefully I get more than 1,000 coins out of those. Koivu doesn't have a bid. He's a leader's card, in case you don't know what his deal is, 99. So again, it's one of the few cards that's technically better than the Pekka, just as far as faceoffs go. I don't really know how much you need that +1, but get after it. Wow, Tavares only at 20. What is your stupid trade offer that you're trying to give me? That is actually somewhat interesting, except for the fact that I don't want Shea Weber at all. I didn't even see that Kraus in the heavy hitters event. That must have been, that was either week 2 or that was one of the ones that kind of got like the special one that went off before the event finished. But 81 left winger who's probably shoots left-handed, face stats of 89 skate and 80 shot. I don't think he's gonna do it for me. Yeah, Weber. I have got better right defensemen, fantasy cards even that are gonna get better than my MSPs. Why are you putting me back to the beginning? That's so stupid. Yeah, so I should just reject that right now. And this is absurd. Taylor Hall at 1050. Breezeball's got nothing. Here's the Bergie and the base Tavares. I just put these on after pulling these from those packs. These are literally, as I said, the only 2 things that I got from spending 130,000 coins on 2 NHL player choice packs, fruit punch pack for 20K, and then a premium, obviously at 7,500, and a base at 5K. And I think the Bergeron actually came from either the premium or the base. Everything else was 83 or under, all trade-ins. So I put them up for $1,000, just kind of hoping that people notice them as they come on during the reset. But who knows? Somebody might be able to get those for 1,000 as well, and I feel like they should go for more than that. It's just me, I guess. clicking back out in case any of those actually sold, even though it's not saying that they did. And I'm very flustered, I guess. What am I doing here? What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing here? Oh, I did a lemon lime pack too. That's why it was 130K. So I did 2 of these. So sorry, it's premium players packs, not premium NHL. I don't know if I said premium NHL players. I don't know why I said that. But premium players, you're only guaranteed to get 280 pluses. I get more than that, I think. And then the lemon lime with at least 282 pluses and choices. And then one of those. Had almost the same number of coins as I do now. I had about 10K more. Obviously, I feel like that did not go well. So, I'll do the well, whatever. I'll do the reroll trade in, or I won't. What happened there? Oh yeah, because if it doesn't sell, it goes back in your inbox. Yeah. Man, my inbox used to be so stacked. No, the Hovinen was not one of the ones that I was doing. And I get to see all the fun stuff in my... Oh, here it is. Yeah, this guy, he was... Somebody was selling it for a lot of coins. I mean, a lot of coins might have been like only like 1,500 or something like that, but it was going pretty high. So I was kind of trying to jump on board. Didn't work for me, I guess. Yeah, so maybe it's just my opinion, but that inbox looks mighty weak at the moment. Can I even do a bronze to get silvers? I cannot. That sucks. Alright, makes me feel better. I got anything in the gold upgrades that I'm not using? No, nothing good. Alright, well, Nylander can get some upgrades at some point, I guess. Yikes. And this should be timed with the... Yeah, so that sucks. I don't have enough of the other things. Trying to find something worth doing at the end here. Even though I don't actually have, I need more than 7. So we'll go ahead and add these 3, I guess. But yeah, I'm not actually 4 shy here because I play as the 99ers. I played once as Asat or Asshat if you prefer. So I kind of don't want to really get rid of those. And Solar Bears looks kind of fun. I haven't done that yet, but considering it now. Played against somebody with that earlier. Logos, a little bit different. I don't remember getting one. If I had, I don't really want to get rid of these guys. Playing as Czech Republic at the moment. As I said, I've played as Asshats. Also in here would be USA and Canada and Russia and Italy. And then obviously the 99ers. I don't know. I could get rid of one of those, I guess. I don't really want to be honest. It's just a base pack. It's 5K. I feel like these things are... I feel like those things have more value to me than 5,000 coins. And then this is also not a true 21 because I got 4 of the Tri-City Americans that I've also played as and want to play as. But if I have 8 in here, I don't. I've got 5. So still shy of being able to do this, and this is even worse as a mini, which is technically worth 2,500 coins. So I guess this is the part of the broadcast that is welcome to the thinkings of a crazy person. That's kind of how I go through those things. And at least the jerseys for sure, I had so many of these things, and as long as I'm showing all of my cards, since I'm like, literally thinking of not playing anymore for as long as I can. Yeah, that's gonna take a while. Um, well, not too long. I guess that's 15 days. Uh, Kind of part of the problem, I guess, if you want to call it a problem, is that that gets you a premium pack, and you could, if you get even just one additional gold jersey in on average in each one of those premium packs, that over the course of 15, you get 15 more. Now you've got at least one more day, so that should take me into December if I was continuing to play. And I wasn't planning on it. Also, if you're looking in the inbox, you noticed that there are some gold jerseys in there, mostly the Hockey Fights Cancer ones that I both don't want to give up, don't want to trade in, and don't really feel like selling to people either. So, kind of just stuck with them. Um, don't want to get into too much of that because I've been doing this for like 4 hours. It feels like now, and I literally have to go right this minute for IRL stuff. But so horrible note to end on. But I wanted to do the whole Movember thing, and I was doing screenshots to show the teams. And I didn't think until after I wasn't able to do it anymore, but I finally realized I could choose, through the hut challenges, to ensure that the opponent that I was up against happened to be, in fact, the people that they were playing against, going off of the Hockey Fights Cancer for the month of November, which started a little bit early into October. Um, that some days were off, and some days only had one team playing, and other days there were like 5 different games in which the home team was playing with their Hockey Fights Cancer jerseys on, and was doing a thing as part of that whole event. I wanted to show my support for that, so I went out and bought, before they cut me off, I bought almost all of the Hockey Fights Cancer jerseys that I could get in the marketplace. And then, as I said, I got cut off. I'd already done a few of those things, but hadn't thought ahead to realize, like, oh, I can choose to at least go into the start screen, the load screen for a hut challenge, because you can do that versus basically every single team in the NHL. So I should have done that. I was going to, and was also going to go out and buy all the rest of the jerseys I didn't have, which wasn't very many. I think I only had maybe about 10 or so left that I hadn't picked up yet at that point. And then that was when they confiscated my million coins and shut me off from the auction house completely from buying and selling for a week. So I just said screw it and gave up on that whole idea. So I'm just kind of stuck with these Hockey Fights Cancer jerseys that I don't feel is appropriate for me to be trying to profit off of them. And yet I had coins and I was willing to spend them, and I thought it was a good kind of cause to do or whatever. So I mean, I was paying at least 1,500 or more coins for each one of them, and there's 31 teams. So it sucks. It does suck. So if we could end here. I guess we'll go. It's gonna take a second to get back over to it, but um, the overall point of this whole thing was basically just showing the Carlson and the Burns and saying specifics outside of what's been shown so far, that these are going to be 92 overalls. I'll go with the Carlson one on the screen as we end here, because I do feel like this is probably going to be the one that you'd go with if you've got a choice and you've got kind of no idea what's going to come out in 2 weeks after that, if they're also going to be 92 overall MSPs. And then who are you really going to be looking for to be included in that group? Would you want them to be guys like these that are effectively already going to be either at or around those overalls anyways through informs, or would you like it more like this last event where it was guys that were much lower overalls to start the season and therefore were nowhere near that as far as their informs are concerned? I don't know. I could kind of go either way. I think that it's kind of fine as we move into 92, and then hopefully the next event possibly even getting into 93. And it'd be great to get at least one of the first gold master icons to come out soon, preferably before the new year, which is now only just a little bit more than a month away. Uh, I think that that generally speaking, with those, I might have certain preferences for like players that I would like to see with that. It's been kind of fun to have the best player on my team stats wise, as far as the points that he's put up, be the leader Jonathan Taves card, which is just partially a factor of that event having come out obviously before heavy hitters and then before this Young Stars event, um, and then also just with never having a tradable version of that. So the card that I have right now is the only version that I've ever had of it, and it's always been untradeable compared to a number of the other MSPs, including the ones that you see now that I actually only had as tradable: the Niedermeyer, the Lundqvist, and I thought there was at least one, and the Dahlin. So those three off the top of my head that I only ever had as tradable. Um, uh, there were others that I've either had as loans, or as the loans ran out I might have had a tradable and then converted to untradeable and stuff like that. And so the stats that they consider are only based off of having that exact card. Now every player that I have out there on the auction house right now are all players in which they're going to be gone today in the next 7 hours from when I'm speaking. And if you hear this 4 hours from now, it'll be 3 hours from when you hear it. Um, but I don't have a buy now on them. I guess there were a couple that didn't even have the initial 1,000 coin bid on them. All the big ones did though, so those cards are all going to be gone. Probably never going to make it back onto my team because there's like no market for them. No one's selling them because it's stupid to sell them. Um, but what I don't know why I went off on that stupid ass tangent. The point that I was making was that the Taves, it's been fun, that he's my top player as far as stats go. He's my number one center. I look for certain things, from him, and he at the very beginning he was getting those things done pretty frequently, and of late he's been getting them again somewhat frequently, and there was kind of a gap in between the two when he was like missing it all the time. Um, but he's generally putting it home, and also he's playing on a line that's got crash the net, and he's got good hand eye and offensive awareness and stuff like that. So he's kind of in the spot where he needs to be, and so if there's any kind of loose pucks in front of the net, he's able to kind of dunk those home pretty easily. So that definitely pads his stats a little bit. I haven't looked in a little while as far as what he was doing comparing to other people, but as you see, I also just sold at least 3 or 4, if not more, out of my 18 position players that were starting all my games. So looking at Taves compared to other players on my team, it's going to look a little bit different. Plus, I just added 4 more position players in the last 2 weeks that weren't there before, and it's kind of hard in a 2 week span for them to get those stats anywhere close to the Taves that's been there for a month and a half now or whatever it's been now. Um, Long story short, though, for me, I generally would have much rather prefer it have been Patrick Kane rather than Taves that was taking that leadership role. I mean, he's not a center, so he couldn't have played center. And his faceoffs in this game are atrocious. But I would have, as far as the players in real life, I would have preferred that a little bit more. Again, in real life, I like Carlson and Burns. I would like to have an Erik Karlsson card that I enjoy playing with, just from liking him in real life. Last year, I would have not wanted a McDavid or honestly or a Crosby or a couple of others either. Um, as far as like not really liking them in real life, not really wanting to have a card of theirs in the game. This year, it's changed a little bit like that. There's very few players that I would say that I had sort of a very sort of negative reaction to, that I wouldn't want to play with them, even if they had a massively awesome card, just based off of what they were like in real life. So, long story short, I think for me is as these cards get better and better, at least before kind of potentially everything is a 99 as it was last year. They're saying that that's not going to happen this year. We'll see. that we're already into the 90s. So as that happens, for me, I think it just kind of comes down to more of as all of the stats and attributes and tendencies, which are all just listed as stats there, as those all kind of you know normalize to all being on the very high end in the mid to upper 90s, low 90s, and some of them that maybe aren't as important or are a bit lagging, and as far as pulling them up, and particularly with more and more synergies added on to these special cards to be able to help out the team getting additional boosts in certain areas where they need them. Um, at that point, then for me, I can understand how there might be certain cards that for some people just tend. Hey, what's up, Ryan? I'm cutting this off now, man, because I got to get going in real life here. Um, but my final point on this was just that I know that for some people, myself included, I try to avoid this type of bias, but sometimes you just kind of feel it in the game that there's just some cards, um, just in general, like as far as players, like the three different versions of overalls for Eric Carlson, for example, so far before today that have been out that may play differently for you compared to how you hear it from other people or whatever. That kind of stuff can certainly happen. Um, I was on board with others that felt like that Darlene from day one that came out had played, just out of his head way better than the card suggested. For me personally, the Paul Coffey was the same way. They just happened to both be two premier left-handed defensemen. Um, and I don't have another example off the top of my head that I can think of somebody who people already think pretty highly of, but that played like way better for me because it's pretty obvious. Like Morenz and Lafleur were basically glitches at the beginning of the year, and they've mostly held up to that. They've been very very good for me also. Um, but I would say guys like the I don't know, like the leader Stamkos, who I'm also selling, and is gonna be gone in 6 hours as well. Um, and going back to the early days with the Pekka and the Burke, who are going to be gone, and the Breezeball, who's going to be gone. Cards like that that were only even like 82s and 83s. It didn't have to come down to like how good they were overall. And before they even had like the leaders that all had at least one thing that was a 99, I didn't even need that for me to have certain cards that for me at least seemed like they played way better than I would expect based off of the stats. But if you just kind of put all of that to the side for a second and just say, okay, what would you choose if you get to have like the exact same characteristics, like so the same stats, attributes, tendencies, etc., that are all just listed as stats on the screen for any player for any particular position. So either left-handed or right-handed defenseman, left-handed or right-handed forwards, regardless of whether they're centers or whatever. Um, for me, it would just come down to the things that you see up on top that you can't change. So their height and their weight, basically their size, and then obviously their handedness. If you're asking specifically if you want righties or lefties or whatever, um, and so that's it. You know what I mean? So technically speaking, if you had a 99 across the board that got all of its boosts, because you can see with this Brent Burns, you add plus 10 to this card, he's going to have a ton of stuff that doesn't come anywhere close to maxing out, like slap shot accuracy being 92, and even wrist shot accuracy being 96. All of his handles, his deking and hand eye would be 93s. There's a bunch of stuff on here that would never max out for him. But if you were to get one of those like free agency cards from 19 that basically just turned the 99s into 99 across the board with like +2 to 5 different team-based synergies and all that crap, they were fun cards. My whole team stacked with them. Um, but if you had that for a guy like Brent Burns, like absolutely, I'll take that all day, every day. 6'5", 230, plus has the speed and can still handle because he's basically got 99s across the board. If I had to choose between the two, these two would be kind of almost a toss-up for me. It'd be tough for me to choose, but that's not really what you're seeing here. Whatever it is that they're going to be doing for this event, because these two cards are going to be part of the same event. If it's either going to be, as I said, a +3 across the board for both of them, or there's going to be something that's going to be boosted, and they're likely going to both get the same exact boost of whatever that boost is. So that's why that Carlson is always, in my mind, going to be better than the Burns. I don't know if that sounds strange, but I just want to end it with that by saying that that's what it is in reality. But as these things progress into we're already into the slightly above the low end 90s and moving up from there. For me, I would look at specific things of either basically really big guys like this Brent Burns, 6'5", 230, can get on the body, or the opposite. Or I'd be looking for Kanoye, Roadrunner, or I'd be looking for Morenz and other guys like that that can kind of get in and out. Who, again, you're talking about once they're maxed, you don't have to be too concerned with their balance or their strength and being knocked off the puck because all their quote unquote stats are maxed out at that point. So they should be able to kind of hold up the same way that somebody huge like this would be able to do. So I kind of go that route where my play style doesn't always gear one way or the other. I do tend to do a bit more run and gun, but it's as across the board players, cards, and opponents, even versus just offline CPU mode in squad battles that I skipped for I don't know 2-3 weeks at least, and I played enough this week to qualify for Pro 1 or whatever, which is the highest I've ever had anyways. So I just tied that again. I've done that like 3 or 4 times, I think now. Never got into Elite. Obviously never came anywhere close to top 100. But did have some of my highest points total, so it took me less games to get that high. But anyways, point is, even against like ones like those, guys are starting to pick up on their speed. Plus, they're getting boosts. It seems like, and when you're playing versus AI, they kind of like get juiced. You could be up against a guy who has at best like 85 to low 80s on their speed and acceleration and stuff like that, and they don't have synergies activated, and yet they're catching your guy who's like the McDavid like 99 across the board. It seems kind of absurd. And you can also have McDavid trying to chase that guy down and not being a good job of doing it. Hold on. So my point is that as that's happening, we get a little water here. You left us, Ryan? Dude, I guess it was only 7 minutes ago that you were here, but whatever. So as that happens more and more, where people are kind of catching up on the speed, it's just for me at least, it feels like even as my cards progress, if without getting too kind of not really meta, but too like heady about the whole thing, the the incremental or marginal uh, increases or progression for my team is like at a slower pace than compared to like the average from everybody else that might have only been playing with the cards that were untradeable that they've gotten from rerolls or untradeable packs from events and stuff like that. And so for them, they like even like this 89 the 92 that's going to come out, like that could be a huge increase from them compared to maybe they already have like his base 85 or whatever. And that is that, I mean, this 89 is only a +4 across the board compared to that 85, but obviously the 92 is going to be at least 3 more on top of that. So you're talking about a +7 difference on on a guy who was tied as the highest overall base defender in the game to start with. So you could start to pretty clearly see how the average players, as far as their teams or their, I don't know, their bankrolls or whatever, particularly for those that are either strictly free to play or didn't want to put too much into it or whatever. I think it's pretty obvious. You should be able to see that their their the if you want to call it the pace or just the incremental advancement that their teams have been making is just gonna always be higher than mine because my guys were basically already maxed out, and the top team out there um, that is taking a hit today as I sell some of those top card. Well, most of half, I think half the team, half the top cards. Um, and I'm also selling the backups that I had from the beginning, who would have been good fill-ins for those spots, despite being much lower overalls. So I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do honestly, but point being that I kind of I didn't I was literally at the ceiling, and then as a new event would come out, as new informs would get put out, would mean that you would just have to kind of keep churning and burning for very small increases. So it's like the difference between this 87 Burns and the 89 Burns, or the 87 Carlson primetime and the 89 primetime Carlson. Do they have? They seriously gave him the same synergy? Oh, didn't I do this before? Hold on, let me see the. No, I'm not gonna have another example of this. That sucks. I think I stumbled upon that in a previous one as well. That I think that they. I initially thought that all prime times kept the same synergy even when they moved up from one to the next. Found like at least one example that wasn't the case or whatever. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. This 89 is, arguably at least 2 points better than the 87. But if you had to pay, um, I'll just make up numbers here, but 'cause I don't even know what these things used to go for. But say that like when this came out, this was 200. I mean, we could see what they're at right now. That'll help. But I need to go, so I need to finish this. Um, Only one, so that's an unlikely price, but 225K for the 87. And that this partially has to do with the fact I think most people have figured out that these guys are going to be dropped today. So yeah, and then not quite twice that for the only one of these that's being listed. Um, so I was going to use smaller numbers, but we'll use those exact numbers. So let's say 200,000 for the 87. Um, eh, Say that was like the price that you paid at that. No, so let's say you paid 300,000 at the time that this came out, and then a month later this was out, and you wanted that, and you needed to make your increase because this was the card you were playing with. And now you wanted to play with this one. You bought this for 300K, and then as this came out, you can only get what looks like at least 225 or maybe 200 for it. So you could say that your utility was the 75 to 100K loss that you incurred on it during that month that you were able to play with it, and you did get something back. It wasn't a complete loss, and you take those funds and you put it into getting the new one, and now you got to pay like 400K for this upgrade. And it should be pretty obvious, but it's not really that much of an incremental change for you, and perhaps that's why most people who play the game, as including the content creators, generally don't really try to sort of play that game of maxing out their team. I understand that people that put stuff out in NHL 19 had said that literally all of the informs were which last year again were primetime, team of the week, and milestones, that every single one of them were almost a guarantee pack and sell every single time, just because of the diminishing marginal value that they were always going to have. And there's still some truth to that. It's a little bit different game this year, in my opinion, but it does definitely seem to make some sort of sense. And that's when you see like the teams that they're playing with, where they'd be looking at, if they did have Carlson or Burns, they're looking at like these two cards on their team, and I don't, they're still opening packs, and particularly if they're untradeable, I guess maybe they're hoping for a big one that they can add to their team or something like that. And if they're opening up tradable ones, I guess they're turning those into coins or something, because they do tend to show about 1 million coins or more when they're looking at when they're doing their broadcasts. And outside of pack addicts like Thrash, they're not turning around and putting them into these packs that haven't really had much value at all since the first week of the game. And then the only value I got was because I opened thousands of them. Um, so yeah, it's I definitely in closing, if I can get my ass off this broadcast here, when I'm literally talking to myself at the moment, um, is that I it's not just that it's play your own game, play your own screen type deal. It's also that I'm not sure that it can really even be argued that there's one sort of sort of pure or best strategy to approach the game from an overall perspective and how to handle whether to ever buy points that you would then use to spend on packs, or whether you would take any coins to buy packs, like the variety of things that you could do, outside of going into the marketplace and paying a price for a card that you know is going to come down in value and then looking to turn around and sell it later. um, Outside of, like, that seemingly not very being a very optimal strategy, unless again the utility that you got out of it during the time that you had it was at or or above, what that loss and that cost was. So like when I used the Carlson as an example, if the loss that you had from what you paid for, the 87 was 300K, and then you were later sold it a month later for 225K, which I think is pretty generous. I don't think you'd get that lucky. But if you were to do that, then it's a loss of 75K on top of the 5% that you got to take off on the actual final sale as well, which makes it even worse. But so if you got like 75,000 coins worth of value during that month, I could see that happening. It's not impossible to get 75,000 coins worth of value over the course of a month from games played if you're really grinding and playing everything and playing all the hut modes and all that stuff. But he's at best going to be one player in a group of 18 position players and 20 total players on your team, all of whom have to kind of be out there for those games in order for you uh, to play those games to get to earn that value, or whatever. And I the only time that I did a broadcast before this, in the last, I almost felt like a month, but in the last at least few weeks or whatever, was, and it went way too long, as this has too, but it was trying to point out the derivative coin cost value for you in playing every single game that you play. It's always the same. Spoiler alert, the answer is it's 200 coins. Um, uh, is the cost. It's pardon me. It all comes down to the fact that it's 2,000 coins for 20 contracts, so that covers 10 games for every player on your team. If you say only have, like, 20 cards in your collection, um, and you play with those, and then when they run out, you use those contracts to up them up again. So every 10 games, you use everything from that pack. The pack costs you 2,000. It just kind of works out nicely that there's 20 cards in the pack and that there's 20 players in your team. Not really the thing to focus on here. It's that it costs you 2,000 coins. So each card costs you, divided by 20, costs you 100. So 10 games per player is 100 coins. Every game then is 10 coins. And then back to the 20, you got 20 players on your team. So every game, 20 players each, costing 10 coins for that one game out of 10 on the contract card, gives you a cost of 200 coins, to be able to play that game. So if you play anything that doesn't give you coins back and doesn't even factor into anything in which you could get coins, which should really include basically everything that you do in which you rage quit, you generally shouldn't be able to get anything as a result from having done that. I think technically comp seasons gives you something, um, for the overall season, but definitely hurts your chances of ranking higher in the end. And I've yet to play Hut Champs this year. I've yet to qualify for it, so I don't know what the deal is there. But most of the other modes are such that if you rage quit even if it's a 1 minute period hut challenge game versus the computer, you get nothing out of it, and you effectively just wasted 200 coins across the board minimum for your players that are on your team through the contract costs, and got nothing out of it. And you might say 200 coins is nothing, because you might say, hey, I know a way in which I can get 200 coins. I can't believe I'm going to do this. This just goes to show you how lacking in content I am here, and how I really need to go. I need to be somewhere very soon. Oh, I don't think it's gonna work. I think I'm out. So I think this is gonna show no redemption. But hey, you get to hear an ad. If this actually did go through, you'd get 200 coins for sitting through this. Now I think I could press buttons right now. I did that last year. I don't remember if I've done it even accidentally this year. But you can click buttons before it finishes. Like I guess if you're in a hurry and you can't sit through the 20 to 30 seconds. See if they're gonna give it to me. I don't think so though. Let's see. Done. No reward. Take your time. No rush. Just trying to end broadcast here. No rewards available. Come on, you can do it. What the hell is going on? Maybe something else sold. Is that why you're taking so long? There we go. Thank you for proving my point. In case you've never done that before, I'm running very low on that. Normally there's 3 screens of ads. Never do the first one. You never get any coin redemption for that. At least I never have. I don't know if they've quote unquote patched that. Probably low priority for them. So I always do. I like the middle one. It's just fun. It's actually gaming. And then the one that just showed, I don't think is all that bad either. And each time that you watch it, you get 200 coins. So, you know, if you're making a habit of rage quitting in events that get you nothing in return for the rage quit, go ahead and drop into some ads to get those 200 coins back. Or I don't know, do a bunch of other stuff in which those 200 coins don't make or break your deal. Let's see what we got going on here. Huh, so I went up a little. That's still the same, and that's still the same. That sucks. Feels like I'm gonna be, it does not seem like this is gonna end up so well for me. Like, oh wait, so it's the Koivu that nobody bid on yet? Alrighty, that's gonna be it for me. Usually I say peace out and like stuff like until next time. I don't know when there would be a next time. But who knows? Maybe we'll be back on later today with a broadcast of like, hey, look how wrong I was about today's event. Because we got now, whatever the hell we got. Give me something with a timer on it, please. That's close enough. Opponent refresh down there. 6 hours and 10 minutes from now is when is 2 p.m. Pacific time, and when this will all get refreshed. Which, by the way, like if you need a gold collectible, that's the amount of time it is. So you haven't done those. Go ahead and do those, which is gonna make me look to see. I feel like, hold on, it says, yeah, I'm missing some stars. So I missed something. I think it was something I didn't care too much about. What was it? All right, so 1,000 coins if I have 5 hits and a shutout versus the Pro Lightning, and those I think are the only stars that I'm missing. Oh, missing another one here. Gotta win the game, Pro Rangers to get a collectible. Crap. All right, if my IRL thing is not actually required to be done right this second, or and these are just one things, so I've done all of those correctly. I might go and do that. Try to get that collectible. Not really sure why I didn't make a point of getting that before, but yeah, if you need a gold collectible, you kind of missed out on the other ways to get it through the dailies. But there's 9 weekday challenges, which gets you 9. You need one other one. I don't think that they're. You get the loan pack from that. Yeah, so there's not a. You get, I don't know, you get 9. I don't know where the 10th one would come from you. got to be a way though, right? I don't remember. Um, I know that I got it from last week's weekly, or maybe I guess this week's weekly, which is this will also be changing in the next 6 hours. There isn't one, or is there one from the daily? There's not, for me at least. There's not one from the daily, but there was one in the weekly this week, which is now ending. So yeah, do those and take those 10 collectibles and go trade them in for an untradeable gold collectible, and you'll be 1/15 towards being able to get a Carlson or a Burns. Anyways, I'm not gonna say it till next time because I hope there isn't one. Peace out. Hope that was somewhat